You've been told your whole life that happiness comes from giving yourself away, from pleasing others, from chasing approval, from carrying everyone's weight but your own. But if that were true, why do you still feel exhausted even when you give everything? Why do you still feel stuck, like your life belongs to everyone else except you? The truth is, 2025 isn't the year to keep pouring from an empty cup. It's the year to finally turn inward, to focus only on yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of survival, strength, and sanity. Buddhism has known this secret for centuries. Real freedom isn't found in possessions or applause. It's found in protecting your energy, in saying no when you must, in walking your own path without guilt. It's about building a life where your mind is clear, your spirit is calm, and your focus is fully on you. Because here's the truth. In 2025, the world will try to own your attention. Social media will fight for your eyes. Work will fight for your hours. Family and friends will fight for your energy. And if you're not careful, you'll lose yourself in the noise. But if you follow these 10 Buddhist lessons, everything shifts. The chaos quiets, the distractions fade. You begin to feel steady, powerful like a mountain no storm can shake. Tonight, as you hear these words, you'll feel the weight start to lift. Tomorrow, when you wake, you'll see the world differently, clearer, calmer, stronger. And for the first time in a long time, you'll know you don't need to chase anyone. You don't need to fix everyone. In 2025, your only mission is this: focus on yourself and watch your life transform. Are you ready? Let's begin. When you reach the point where the noise of the world feels heavier than your own heartbeat, something inside you whispers that it cannot go on this way. You feel stretched thin, your days filled with other people's demands, your nights restless with worries that are not even yours. It's almost as if your life has been rented out, piece by piece, to everyone else, leaving you with nothing but scraps. And yet, you continue to carry it, convinced that this is what love or loyalty looks like. The truth is, this way of living is not love, and it is not loyalty. It is a slow surrender of yourself. And 2025 is not the year to keep surrendering. It is the year to finally learn what it means to care without losing yourself in the process. The practice of letting go of others' problems is not coldness, nor is it rejection. It is a wisdom that arises when you understand that you cannot live two lives at once. You cannot walk your path while dragging someone else's behind you. Buddhism teaches that compassion is vital, but compassion is not the same as carrying. To hold another person's suffering in your heart without confusing it for your own is one of the highest forms of love. When you cling to the belief that you can fix everything for everyone, you become trapped in illusion, and illusion always leads to suffering. Start by noticing the weight you are holding right now that does not belong to you. Perhaps it is the constant stress of a sibling who makes reckless choices, or the endless drama of a friend who never learns from mistakes, or even the quiet resentment of parents who live through you instead of with you. You wake up thinking of their problems, you go to bed rehearsing their worries, and in the process, your own soul grows thin. Ask yourself, who will carry you if you collapse under their weight? The path of self-focus begins here with the courage to set down what is not yours to bear. Letting go does not mean indifference. It means understanding boundaries. A candle does not extinguish itself to light another. It shines steadily, and its light is enough. When you overextend, when you carry problems that are not yours, you risk burning out your flame entirely. True service, true care, comes from strength, not exhaustion. Think of the oxygen mask instruction on an airplane. You must secure your own before helping anyone else. The wisdom may sound simple, yet most of us live as though our oxygen is optional, as though we are somehow stronger for suffocating ourselves. The irony is that this self-neglect leaves us weaker, not stronger, and often unable to help at all. There is also an illusion of control hidden in carrying others' problems. Deep down, you may believe that if you worry enough, sacrifice enough, or take on enough responsibility, you can control the outcome of someone else's life. But Buddhism teaches the truth of impermanence. Nothing can be fully controlled, not even your own future, let alone another's. To carry another person's problem as though it were your own is to rebel against this reality, to fight against the flow of life. The moment you release this illusion, something extraordinary happens. You begin to respect the other person's journey. You allow them to learn their lessons, even if the lessons are painful, and you grant yourself the freedom to focus on the only journey you can truly walk your own. When you stop carrying what is not yours, you create space to breathe, space to listen to your own needs, space to honor your own limits. This does not make you less loving. In fact, it makes your love more powerful, because it is not rooted in desperation or martyrdom, but in clarity. A person who knows how to stand in their own center becomes like a tree with strong roots, offering shade and shelter, but never mistaking another's storms for its own. There will be guilt at first. The mind, conditioned for years to equate self-neglect with goodness, will whisper that you are selfish, that you are abandoning those who need you. But pause for a moment and ask, what is the result of constantly carrying others' burdens? Resentment, exhaustion, quiet bitterness. This is not goodness. This is self-destruction dressed in virtue. The greater courage is in saying no with love, in setting down what you were never meant to hold, and in trusting that those you care for are capable of carrying their own journey. When you choose to let go, you do not become less connected, you become more authentic. You stop showing up from obligation and start showing up from choice. Your relationships shift, sometimes painfully, because those who depended on your endless carrying may resist. But over time, what remains are relationships rooted in respect rather than dependency, in equality rather than imbalance. You are no longer the rescuer, the fixer, the constant savior. You are simply yourself, whole, steady, present. And that presence is far more valuable than any false role you could play. This path also asks you to trust suffering itself. We often carry others' problems because we cannot bear to watch them hurt. We want to rescue, to soften the blow, to take away the pain. But pain is often the greatest teacher, and by taking it away, you may also take away the very lesson that would have transformed them. Buddhism does not glorify suffering, but it recognizes its power. To allow another to face their own suffering is not cruelty. It is faith in their strength, faith in their journey. It is saying, I believe you are strong enough to face this, and I will not rob you of the chance to grow. In practice, this looks like stepping back without abandoning. You listen, but you do not absorb. You support, but you do not sacrifice your own well-being. You care, but you do not confuse their karma with yours. It is a discipline of the heart, a constant reminder that compassion has boundaries. The Buddha himself left his family not out of coldness, but because he understood that he could not awaken while entangled in their expectations. He returned later, but only after he had found his own path. In the same way, you too must step back in order to step forward. Learning to let go also transforms the way you speak and act. Instead of offering solutions to every problem, you begin to offer presence. Instead of trying to carry, you begin to reflect. You say, I hear you, I care for you, I trust you. These words free both you and the other. They affirm that love does not require chains, that connection does not require carrying. And in that space, you find peace. Peace not from abandoning, but from allowing. As you walk into 2025, make this your practice. Each time you feel the weight of someone else's problem pulling you down, pause. Ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Will carrying it help them, or will it only weaken me? Am I doing this out of love or out of fear? These questions cut through the fog of guilt and obligation. They return you to clarity, reminding you that your first duty is to your own path. And when your path is clear, when your center is strong, you are far more able to be a true source of support. Over time, as you release the habit of carrying others' burdens, you will notice something else. Your energy returning. Your days feel lighter. Your mind grows quieter. You rediscover what it feels like to live inside your own life, not inside everyone else's. This rediscovery is profound because it reveals how much of your suffering was never truly yours. You see how much of your identity was built on roles you never chose: caretaker, fixer, savior. And in that moment of realization, you taste a freedom that is both fierce and gentle. The freedom of being yourself. This freedom is not the end of caring, it is the beginning of caring rightly. When you are no longer crushed by the weight of others' problems, you can love with openness, without resentment. You can give without losing. You can listen without drowning. You can be present without being consumed. This is the balance the Buddha pointed to. Compassion without attachment, love without chains. It is a love that liberates both you and those around you. As you cultivate this practice in 2025, remember that it is not a single decision, but a daily discipline. Each moment offers you a choice: to carry or to release, to control or to trust, to drain yourself or to stand steady. Each choice shapes you. Over time, the discipline becomes natural, and you will wonder how you ever lived any other way. And in that new way of living, you will find that focusing on yourself is not isolation, it is alignment. It is the simple, radical act of choosing to live your own life fully, without apology. And from that choice, everything changes. Your relationships deepen, your energy grows, your path clears. You no longer feel like a prisoner of everyone else's chaos. Instead, you walk through 2025 with clarity, strength, and peace. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because you are finally carrying only what is yours, and that is enough. When you finally stop carrying what was never yours, something unexpected rises inside you. A new kind of space appears, one that feels strange at first. Without the constant noise of other people's problems, without their weight pressing against your chest, you are left face to face with yourself. For many, this is unsettling. The silence feels empty, almost threatening, because for years distraction has been a shield. But within that silence lies the doorway to everything you have been searching for. The next step is learning to sit with it, to use quiet not as a void to run from, but as a tool to return to your own voice. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of clarity. In a world where every moment is flooded with chatter, opinions, and endless noise, silence has become rare, almost unnatural. We have trained ourselves to fill every gap with music, with scrolling, with conversations that often lead nowhere. Yet when you strip it all away, what remains is the truth of who you are. This truth does not shout. It whispers. And if you are never still enough to hear it, you may live an entire life disconnected from yourself. Buddhism teaches that wisdom grows not in constant talking but in deep listening. To listen to others, yes, but most importantly, to listen to the self beneath the noise of the mind. The practice of silence is a discipline, a way to return home to yourself. In silence, the endless stories of the ego lose their grip. The constant internal debates soften. You begin to notice the rhythm of your breath, the texture of your thoughts, the emotions that rise and fall like waves. In silence, you meet yourself without filters, without performance. For many, this is the first time they truly hear the sound of their own life. There is a power in this quiet that no external achievement can match. Think of how often decisions are made in haste, under pressure, surrounded by noise. How often have you agreed to something just to avoid the discomfort of pausing? Silence slows the process. It allows you to see what you truly feel, not what you have been conditioned to say. In 2025, when the speed of life grows faster each day, when attention is pulled in 1,000 directions, choosing silence becomes a rebellion. It is a way of saying, my focus belongs to me, my mind belongs to me, and I will not let the world drown out my own voice. Silence also teaches patience. In the stillness, there is no immediate reward, no quick distraction to soothe you. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind may resist, throwing out thoughts, worries, unfinished tasks, as if to drag you back into the noise. But if you stay, if you allow the mind to empty itself, something shifts. Thoughts slow, the body softens, and beneath it all you discover an inner calm that was always there. This calm is not something you create, it is something you uncover once the noise is gone. Quiet time is not wasted time. In silence, your brain processes and restores. Studies show that silence helps regenerate brain cells, boosts creativity, and lowers stress. The Buddha did not meditate in crowded marketplaces, but in forests, under trees, in stillness. He knew that silence is where understanding blooms. When you create quiet time in your own life, you are giving your mind the same gift: space to heal, space to grow. Silence also reshapes your relationships. When you learn to be comfortable with quiet, you stop fearing pauses in conversations. You no longer feel the need to fill every gap with empty words. Instead, your words become fewer but sharper, more intentional. Others notice this difference. They feel your presence more strongly because it is not diluted by constant noise. Your silence becomes strength, a mirror that often shows others more about themselves than your words ever could. The practice of silence also exposes what you have been avoiding. Many people fear being alone with their own thoughts, because silence makes it harder to escape. The old wounds, regrets, and hidden fears rise to the surface when the distractions are gone. Yet this is exactly where the healing begins. To sit in silence with your pain is to show yourself the greatest form of compassion. You are saying, I will not abandon you, even when it hurts. Over time, the pain softens, the wounds close, and the silence transforms from something frightening into something comforting, like a trusted friend. To cultivate silence in 2025, start small. Dedicate 10 minutes each day to sitting without devices, without music, without distractions. Let the world spin outside your door while you anchor yourself in stillness. Extend that time gradually. Create spaces in your day where silence becomes natural. In the morning before the world wakes, during meals where you taste each bite without words, in the evening when the day is done. These moments are not luxuries. They are necessities. They are the anchors that keep you from drifting away in a world designed to scatter your attention. There is also value in carrying silence within you, even when surrounded by noise. The Buddha described this as inner stillness, a tumasini, mind untouched by chaos, even when life is loud. You cultivate this by pausing before reacting, by listening fully without rushing to speak, by holding a quiet space inside yourself where no one else can intrude. This inner silence is unshakable, and once discovered, it follows you everywhere. In silence, you also rediscover intuition. Beneath the endless chatter of the mind lies a deeper wisdom, a knowing that does not rely on logic alone. This voice is often drowned out by external noise, but in quiet it becomes clear. You begin to feel what is right for you, not because someone told you, but because your own inner compass points the way. This is the kind of wisdom that cannot be taught in books or speeches. It is revealed only in the stillness of your own heart. Choosing silence in 2025 is also choosing freedom. Freedom from the addiction to constant stimulation. freedom from the endless need to respond, freedom from the fear of being alone. You learn that silence is not emptiness, but fullness, a fullness of presence, of awareness, of life itself. And in that fullness, you begin to hear not only yourself, but the world more clearly. The sound of the wind, the rhythm of your breath, the subtleties of another's voice. Silence sharpens your perception until everything becomes more vivid, more alive. There is a reason monks take vows of silence for extended periods. They know that silence is not weakness, but power. It strips away the unnecessary, leaving only the essence. In your own life, even without a monastery, you can practice this discipline. Try spending a day speaking only when necessary. You will notice how much energy is wasted in words that add nothing. You will notice how silence makes you more present, more aware of your surroundings. And you will notice how others respond differently to you because silence draws respect. Silence also reconnects you with gratitude. In the absence of constant distraction, you begin to notice the small details. You often overlook the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the comfort of breathing freely, the beauty in simple moments. Gratitude is not born from abundance but from awareness, and silence makes awareness possible. As you deepen this practice, silence becomes less about an act and more about a way of being. You carry it within you like a secret strength. It steadies you in conflict, it calms you in stress, it guides you in decisions. While others drown in noise, you walk quietly, clearly, fully in touch with yourself. This is the gift of silence. And when you reach this place, you realize that silence was never empty. It was never a void to be feared. It was the space where you finally met yourself, where your true voice emerged, where your focus returned to where it always belonged, on you. And in 2025, when the world is louder than ever, silence will be your sanctuary, your compass, your power. It will remind you that the clearest answers do not come from outside, they rise from within, but only if you are quiet enough to hear them. When silence begins to reshape your life, when you finally hear the sound of your own voice without interruption, something else rises into view. You start to question everything you thought mattered. The noise that once defined success, applause, titles, possessions, feels strangely hollow compared to the calm you feel inside. You begin to see that much of what you once chased was never truly yours, that the standards handed down by the world were borrowed illusions. This is where the next lesson begins, redefining what success really means, shifting it from the endless pursuit of more to the quiet power of peace. Success has long been tied to accumulation. More wealth, more status, more recognition, more proof that you are worthy. Yet no matter how much is collected, the hunger does not end. The deeper question emerges: why does gaining so much still leave people restless? The answer is simple yet profound: because success measured in possessions is success built on sand. It cannot hold you steady, it cannot carry you through suffering, and it cannot give you the one thing you crave most: inner stability. Buddhism turns this definition inside out. Instead of chasing external validation, it teaches that real success is the mastery of the mind, the ability to find peace regardless of circumstance. A wealthy person consumed by fear of loss is poor in spirit, while someone with little who carries serenity is already abundant. Peace does not depend on how much you hold in your hands, but on how lightly you hold life itself. This shift begins when you recognize the traps of comparison. Society thrives on measuring people against one another: who earns more, who looks better, who has achieved milestones faster. Yet this constant measuring pulls you away from yourself, turning your life into a race you never chose to run. In silence you can see this trap clearly, and once seen, you can step off the track entirely. You start to build your own measure of success, one that does not collapse under the weight of other people's expectations. Redefining success also demands an honest look at desire. Possessions themselves are not evil. It is the attachment to them that breeds suffering. A car can carry you, a house can shelter you, money can provide stability. But when they become your identity, when they define your worth, they turn into chains. The Buddha taught that desire without awareness creates endless cycles of dissatisfaction. Every possession leads to a craving for more, every achievement to a new comparison. But when desire is tempered by wisdom, possessions can serve without enslaving. True success reveals itself in contentment. Not the contentment of resignation, but the kind born from knowing when enough is truly enough. Think of the difference between eating until satisfied and eating until sick. The first nourishes, the second destroys. In the same way, a life built on peace recognizes the balance point where striving turns into suffering. That point is unique to each person, and it can only be discovered by turning inward, not by following what the world tells you. This new definition of success reshapes daily living. Instead of asking, "What have I gained today?" the question becomes, "How much peace have I kept today?" Each small choice becomes a test, saying yes when you mean yes, saying no when you mean no, pausing instead of reacting, choosing simplicity instead of clutter. These choices may seem small, but they accumulate into a life where you are no longer pulled apart by constant striving. Peace as success also transforms ambition. Many fear that if they stop chasing possessions, they will lose drive, that life will become stagnant. But peace does not mean stagnation. It means aligning ambition with meaning, moving with purpose rather than compulsion. When your drive comes from clarity rather than insecurity, your actions are more effective, your work more fulfilling. You do not burn yourself out to prove worth. You act because the action itself feels aligned with who you are. This way of living also changes how you experience failure. In the old model of success, failure is devastating, a blow to your identity. But when success is peace, failure loses its sting. A setback does not define you. It becomes part of the journey, an opportunity to deepen resilience. Peace is not destroyed by circumstances because it was never built on circumstances in the first place. To live this lesson in 2025, start by redefining your metrics. Instead of asking how much you own, ask how calm you feel when you wake up in the morning. Instead of asking how others see you, ask whether you are living in alignment with your own values. Replace the question of "How high have I climbed?" with "How steady is my ground?" This redefinition does not remove the possibility of success as the world defines it. It simply prevents you from being enslaved by it. This path also reshapes relationships. When success is measured by peace, you stop treating others as competitors. Their achievements no longer threaten you because their path is theirs and yours is yours. Instead of jealousy, you find inspiration. Instead of comparison, you find respect. This shift dissolves much of the hidden tension that poisons human connections, opening space for genuine connection. Redefining success also frees you from the endless chase for time. In the old way, success demands sacrificing the present for a future reward. But peace lives only in the present. It asks you to enjoy the meal instead of rushing to the next task, to value rest as much as work, to see each day not as a step toward something else but as complete in itself. When you practice this, your life no longer feels like a waiting room for happiness. Happiness is already here. Another layer of this wisdom is that peace as success is not fragile. Possessions can be lost, titles can be stripped, reputations can be destroyed in an instant, but no one can take away your peace unless you give it away. This is the ultimate freedom, knowing that what makes you successful cannot be bought, stolen, or broken. It lives within you, steady no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes. Peace also deepens creativity. When the mind is not consumed by constant striving, it opens. Ideas flow more easily, solutions arise naturally, beauty is noticed everywhere. This creativity is not forced, but effortless, born from a mind that is calm and spacious. It reminds you that peace is not passive but fertile, the soil from which meaningful action grows. Living this way requires courage. The world will not applaud you for choosing peace over possessions. You may even be misunderstood, accused of lacking ambition or settling for less. But the deeper truth is that you are choosing more freedom, more clarity, more authenticity. And over time, others will see the strength in your calm, the richness in your simplicity, the success in your peace. This lesson also teaches that success is not solitary. When you live from peace, your presence affects those around you. You become a source of calm in chaos, a reminder that another way is possible. This influence is far greater than any wealth or title, because it changes lives not by telling but by being. In this way, your peace becomes a gift that multiplies, shaping the world quietly but powerfully. In 2025, as life grows faster and louder, as pressure mounts to chase endless achievements, choosing to redefine success is revolutionary. It is refusing to measure your worth by standards that only lead to exhaustion. It is declaring that peace is not a consolation prize, but the ultimate prize. It is stepping off the treadmill of comparison and walking steadily on your own path. The journey is not about rejecting possessions or achievements, but about refusing to let them define you. It is about remembering that the truest success is found when your mind is calm, your heart is light, and your days are lived with clarity. In this way, peace becomes not just the goal, but the very definition of a successful life. And as you carry this into the days ahead, you will notice the subtle transformation. The urge to prove yourself weakens, the craving for more softens, the fear of losing fades. What remains is steady, unshakable, deeply satisfying. What remains is success that cannot be measured in numbers, but only in the quiet strength of your own being. What remains is the peace you have been searching for all along. When you begin to see that real success is not in possessions, but in peace, another truth quietly unfolds. Peace cannot survive without protection. It is fragile in the beginning, easily drained by demands, expectations, and the endless pressure to please. This is where the next lesson begins, the strength of saying no. Not the cold, harsh no of rejection, but the steady, loving no that guards your energy and honors your boundaries. Many people spend their lives saying yes when they want to say no. They say yes to avoid conflict, to be liked, to keep the peace. Yet each false yes is a theft. It steals time from your own path. It drains your spirit, and it weakens your sense of self. Over time, this constant self-betrayal builds into resentment. You begin to feel invisible, unheard, even used. Saying yes without alignment is not kindness, it is self-erasure. The art of saying no begins with clarity. To know what you must refuse, you first need to know what matters to you. Without this clarity, every request feels equal. Every demand feels urgent. But when you are grounded in your values, the decision becomes simple. If it protects your peace, it is a yes. If it threatens your peace, it is a no. This practice is not selfishness, it is honesty. It is the recognition that your energy is limited and precious, and if you spend it carelessly, you will have nothing left for what truly matters. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness is the key to this clarity. When a request comes, pause before reacting. Notice the feelings in your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your breath shorten? These are signals of resistance. the body's way of whispering no before the mouth has spoken. Too often, we override these signals out of habit. But when you learn to listen, your body becomes your guide. Honoring this wisdom is the beginning of self-respect. Saying no is also an act of compassion, though it may not appear so at first. When you say yes out of guilt or fear, the energy you give is not clean. It carries resentment, it carries heaviness, and it often harms more than it helps. But a clear no prevents this cycle. It allows others to face their own responsibilities, to find their own strength, to learn their own lessons. Just as carrying another's problem robs them of growth, saying yes when you mean no robs them of honesty. The art of no is the art of truth. Learning to say no requires courage, especially in a culture that glorifies busyness and self-sacrifice. Many equate constant availability with goodness, as though exhaustion were a badge of honor. But Buddhism teaches the middle way, not excess, not deprivation, but balance. To always say yes is imbalance, just as to always refuse would be. The wisdom lies in discernment, in knowing where to draw the line. There is also fear to face, fear of disappointing others, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish. These fears are powerful, but they lose strength when exposed. Ask yourself, what is the cost of always pleasing? You lose your time, your energy, your peace. You become a shadow of yourself. The cost of disappointing others may sting for a moment, but the cost of betraying yourself lingers for a lifetime. Which is truly heavier? The more you practice saying no, the lighter this fear becomes, until it no longer rules you. Practical ways to embody this art include short, simple phrases. You do not need to justify endlessly, nor weave excuses. A clear, respectful statement is enough. I can't take this on right now. That doesn't work for me. I need to rest. These phrases are powerful precisely because they are simple. They place no blame, they invite no argument, they simply declare your boundary. At first, you may feel guilty for using them. Over time, you will feel free. Silence itself can be a form of no. Not every request needs a response. By not rushing to answer, by allowing space, you teach others that your time is valuable. This is another way silence connects to boundaries. It gives you room to consider, to choose deliberately rather than react automatically. The pause becomes protection. There is also the inner no, the refusal you give to your own mind. How many times do you push yourself beyond your limits out of restlessness or self-criticism? The art of no must extend inward, learning to refuse the endless voice that says you are never doing enough. Saying no to this voice is as vital as saying no to external demands. It is how you reclaim rest, joy, and presence. Saying no also reshapes relationships. At first, some may resist, especially if they have grown used to your constant yes. They may accuse you of changing, of being selfish. But over time, the relationships that remain are stronger, built on respect rather than dependency. Others begin to trust your yes more deeply because they know it is genuine. Your presence becomes more valued because it is chosen, not forced. In work, the power of no is even more vital. Without it, you become overwhelmed, stretched thin, unable to give your best. By setting limits, you protect not only yourself but the quality of your work. You teach others how to respect your boundaries, and in doing so, you model a healthier way of living. Leaders who practice this often inspire loyalty, because their teams feel both respected and encouraged to protect their own limits. The deeper lesson is that every no is also a yes to yourself, to your values, to your peace. Each time you refuse what does not align, you affirm what does. You reclaim the hours of your life. You preserve the energy of your spirit. You strengthen the root of your being. This is why the art of saying no is not just a skill, but a form of wisdom. Over time, No becomes less about refusal and more about direction. It is not a wall but a compass, guiding you toward the life you want to live. Every no clears space for a deeper yes. Yes to rest, yes to creativity, yes to connection, yes to growth. Without the power of no, these yeses remain buried under obligation. In 2025, when demands will only multiply, this art will be essential. The pace of life will not slow, the requests will not cease, the expectations will not lessen. But you can choose differently. You can draw limits, not out of anger but out of clarity, not out of rejection but out of love for your own path. Each no will become a declaration. My life is mine, my energy is mine, my peace is mine. And in that declaration, you will find strength you did not know you had. Strength not from domination, not from control, but from self-respect. Saying no is not shutting doors, it is opening the only door that truly matters, the door back to yourself. When you walk through it, you discover that the peace you fought to protect was never fragile after all. It was simply waiting for you to stand guard. When you begin to master the art of saying no, when you protect your energy with boundaries that honor your truth, something else begins to surface. With the noise reduced and your strength preserved, the spotlight naturally turns inward. You start asking yourself where you want to grow, what you want to improve, how you can step closer to the person you know you are meant to be. Yet here lies a subtle danger. Growth can easily become another form of punishment. The voice of self-criticism disguises itself as discipline, and instead of lifting you higher, it drags you down. This is why balance in growth matters. It is the practice of improving yourself without crushing yourself under impossible standards. Buddhism reminds us that growth is not about perfection but about progress. The lotus flower does not spring from polished marble but from muddy water, and yet it blooms with unmatched beauty. In the same way, self-improvement begins from your current state, however imperfect. To demand flawlessness before allowing yourself to feel worthy is to block the very process of becoming. Balance means allowing growth to be steady, kind, and sustainable. Without kindness, improvement becomes self-torture. With kindness, it becomes liberation. Too many people equate growth with harshness. They believe discipline requires punishment, that without constant pressure, they will become lazy or unworthy. But this belief only creates resistance. A mind that is constantly attacked will eventually shut down, just as soil that is overworked becomes barren. True discipline is consistent but gentle, firm but compassionate. It knows when to push and when to rest. In 2025, with endless voices telling you to hustle harder, faster, better, balance will be the difference between burnout and real transformation. One way to embody balance is by redefining what progress looks like. Progress is not always dramatic or visible. Often it is subtle, hidden in the way you respond differently to an old trigger, or in the patience you show when things do not go your way. These shifts may not look like much from the outside, but they signal deep change. To recognize them, you must learn to measure yourself not against others, but against your own past self. Comparison is poison to growth. Compassion is its fertilizer. Another layer of balance lies in pacing. Growth is not a race. It cannot be rushed without damaging the process. Think of a tree forced to grow too quickly. It may rise tall, but its roots are shallow and the first storm will topple it. Human growth follows the same law. If you try to transform everything at once, you exhaust your willpower and collapse under the weight of your own expectations. Balance means focusing on one step at a time, allowing each stage to settle before moving forward. This way, your growth becomes strong, rooted, and lasting. Self-awareness is crucial here. Too often, people pursue growth not from a place of love, but from shame. They try to fix themselves, because they secretly believe they are broken. But growth built on shame can never bring peace. It creates a cycle of never being enough, no matter how much progress is made. Buddhism teaches that you are already whole, already complete, even as you evolve. Growth is not about becoming worthy, it is about expressing the worth that is already there. When you embrace this, self-improvement becomes joyful rather than punishing. Balanced growth also includes rest as part of the process. Rest is not failure, it is fuel. Muscles grow stronger, not during the workout, but during the recovery. In the same way, the mind and spirit deepen not only in effort, but in reflection and stillness. If you push without pause, you break. If you alternate effort with rest, you flourish. The challenge is that rest is often undervalued in modern life, treated as laziness instead of wisdom. But those who rest intentionally, who allow space for renewal, always go further in the long run. In practice, balance can be seen in how you set goals. Instead of chasing perfection, set intentions that are realistic, flexible, and aligned with your values. For example, instead of demanding that you meditate for an hour every day, begin with 5 minutes and let it expand naturally. Instead of forcing yourself into a strict routine that leaves no room for life's unpredictability, design practices that can bend without breaking. Flexibility is strength, rigidity is fragility. Another trap to avoid is comparison disguised as inspiration. It is natural to admire those who seem further ahead, but when admiration turns into self-criticism, it poisons your growth. Every path is unique. What nourishes one person may not nourish another. Balance means learning from others without abandoning yourself. You take inspiration, but you adapt it, shaping it into something that fits your rhythm. This prevents the frustration of forcing yourself into molds that were never meant for you. Mindfulness is again the key to this balance. By paying attention to your inner dialogue, you catch the moments when your drive to grow turns into self-abuse. When you notice thoughts like, "I am not good enough yet," or "I should be further along," pause. Replace them with kinder truths. "I am growing at my own pace." Each step matters, even the small ones. Over time, these shifts in self-talk create an environment where growth thrives naturally, without the poison of constant self-attack. Balanced growth also respects impermanence. There will be times when progress feels fast, and times when it feels slow. There will be seasons of expansion and seasons of stillness. Instead of forcing constant forward motion, balance allows you to honor the natural rhythms of life. Some lessons need time to ripen. Some growth requires setbacks to fully integrate. By accepting this ebb and flow, you stop fighting the process and start cooperating with it. This lesson also speaks to the danger of extremes. Too much focus on growth can make you rigid, joyless, unable to appreciate the present. Too little focus leaves you stagnant, drifting without direction. Balance is the middle way, where you pursue growth without sacrificing your humanity. It is where effort and ease meet, where discipline and compassion walk side by side. In 2025, when every message tells you to optimize every moment, balance will be a radical choice. It will mean rejecting the idea that worth depends on constant achievement. It will mean giving yourself permission to be in progress, to be unfinished, to be both growing and enough right now. This shift dissolves the pressure that makes growth heavy, turning it instead into a natural unfolding. Balanced growth also brings humility. When you are gentle with yourself, you become gentler with others. You recognize that everyone is on their own journey, facing their own struggles. You stop expecting perfection from them as well, allowing relationships to breathe and deepen. Your compassion expands outward, because you know firsthand the weight of being too hard on yourself. This approach also strengthens resilience. When setbacks come, as they inevitably will, a balanced mindset helps you adapt rather than collapse. You do not interpret failure as proof of unworthiness, but as part of the process. You learn, adjust, and continue. This flexibility is the true measure of growth, because it ensures that nothing, not failure, not delay, not difficulty, can stop your progress entirely. Over time, balance turns growth into a way of life rather than a project. You stop seeing self-improvement as something to complete, and instead see it as a continuous journey. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice, to refine, to deepen. There is no finish line, only unfolding. This perspective removes the pressure of deadlines and allows you to enjoy the process itself. Ultimately, balanced growth returns you to yourself. It reminds you that you are not a problem to be solved, but a life to be lived. Improvement is meaningful only if it enhances that life, not if it destroys it in pursuit of some distant perfection. By holding effort and kindness together, you create a path that sustains you, not for a season, but for a lifetime. As you carry this into your days, you will notice the difference. Growth no longer feels like a weight, but like a rhythm. Some days you step forward, some days you pause, but always you remain aligned with your own truth. This is the essence of balanced growth: improvement without punishment, discipline without cruelty, progress without losing your peace. It is the art of becoming without forgetting that you are already whole. When growth finally begins to feel balanced, when you learn to improve without tearing yourself apart, another challenge quietly appears. Even as you treat yourself with kindness, the world around you tempts you to measure your worth by someone else's progress. You look at their victories, their possessions, their milestones, and without meaning to, you begin to doubt your own path. This comparison is subtle but destructive. It steals joy from your achievements, blinds you to your progress, and plants seeds of restlessness where peace should grow. To focus only on yourself in 2025, you must learn the discipline of ending comparison and fully embracing your own journey. Comparison thrives because society rewards it. From an early age, you are told who is faster, who is smarter, who is prettier, who is stronger. Schools rank students, jobs measure employees, social media counts likes and followers. These systems train the mind to see life as a competition, to constantly scan for who is ahead and who is behind. But Buddhism teaches that the path is individual, not a race. The Buddha never told his followers to compare one another's progress. He guided each to walk their own path with sincerity. In truth, comparison is a form of distraction, pulling your eyes away from your own ground and towards someone else's road. The first step in breaking comparison is awareness. Notice how quickly it arises, often in small, everyday moments. You see someone announce a new promotion, and suddenly your job feels inadequate. You notice a friend traveling, and your home feels dull. These shifts happen instantly, pulling you into dissatisfaction without your consent. By naming these moments, you regain power. You can pause and remind yourself, this is comparison, not truth. Their life does not diminish mine. Their journey is not mine to copy. Comparison also thrives on illusion. What you see of another's life is rarely the full picture. People display the polished version, the successes, the smiles, the highlights. What remains hidden are the struggles, the doubts, the private pains. Yet your mind compares your unfiltered reality with their carefully curated surface. It is like comparing the backstage mess of your life with someone else's spotlight performance. This distorted vision ensures you always feel behind. Breaking this illusion requires honesty. Everyone carries burdens, even if you cannot see them. The deeper problem with comparison is that it erodes gratitude. When you are busy measuring what you lack against others, you forget the abundance already in your hands. Gratitude cannot grow in the shadow of envy. But when you shift focus back to your own path, gratitude returns naturally. You begin to notice the steps you have taken, the lessons you have learned, the quiet victories that matter more than applause. This practice not only dissolves envy, but strengthens your sense of direction. Gratitude anchors you in your own life, making it enough. Buddhism teaches the concept of right effort, working diligently on your own growth, without being consumed by desire or comparison. Right effort means giving your energy to what you can control, not wasting it on chasing someone else's shadow. It means walking steadily, even if others seem to be sprinting. Often the one who sprints burns out quickly, while the steady walker reaches further. Your pace is your own, and honoring it is the key to peace. In 2025, social media will remain one of the greatest traps for comparison. Every scroll offers an endless highlight reel of other people's lives. To protect your mind, you must use it consciously or step away. Ask yourself, does this feed my growth, or does it poison my peace? Be willing to limit exposure, to unfollow accounts that stir envy, to create boundaries around how much you engage. Digital minimalism is not weakness, but wisdom, a way of reclaiming your attention from systems designed to exploit your insecurities. Comparison also weakens relationships. It turns friends into rivals, family into competitors, strangers into benchmarks. Instead of celebrating others' joy, you feel threatened by it. Instead of offering support, you withdraw in envy. But when you stop comparing, connection transforms. You can celebrate someone else's success without feeling diminished, because their path no longer defines yours. Joy multiplies instead of divides, and relationships deepen with sincerity. Another aspect of comparison is the illusion of timing. You may feel behind because someone achieved something earlier than you, but every path has its seasons. Some flowers bloom in spring, others in autumn, and both are beautiful in their own time. Forcing your timeline to match another's only creates frustration. Trusting your own timing allows you to focus on preparation rather than pressure. When the season is right, your growth will unfold naturally without force. Self-awareness is again central. Comparison often hides insecurity. You compare because you doubt your own worth, because you believe you must prove something to validate your existence. But worth is not conditional. It does not depend on achievements or appearances. It is inherent, woven into your being. The more you return to this truth, the less you feel the need to measure yourself against anyone. Buddhism emphasizes the middle path precisely because extremes, whether pride or envy, distort reality. Returning to balance, you see clearly, I am enough as I am, and still I can grow. Practically, you can counter comparison with reflection. Instead of asking, why am I not like them? Ask, how have I grown from where I was? This question keeps your focus inward, where true change happens. Journaling is one tool to support this. By recording your progress, you create evidence of your own journey, a reminder that you are moving even when comparison whispers otherwise. Each entry becomes a mirror, showing your growth without needing anyone else as a reference. Comparison is also tied to craving. The Buddha described craving as the root of suffering, and comparison feeds it constantly. You crave what others have, forgetting that each desire, once fulfilled, will simply birth another. The cycle is endless. To break it, practice contentment in the present. This does not mean abandoning ambition but shifting its foundation. Strive not to outdo others but to align more deeply with yourself. Let your ambition be rooted in authenticity, not competition. Another practice is to transform envy into inspiration. When you feel the sting of comparison, pause and ask, what quality in them stirs this? Is it their discipline, their courage, their creativity? Instead of resenting it, use it as a mirror to see what you want to cultivate in yourself. In this way, comparison becomes fuel rather than poison, guiding you toward growth without self-destruction. In 2025, with life accelerating and external pressures multiplying, letting go of comparison will be one of the most radical acts of freedom. It will mean reclaiming your joy from systems designed to keep you dissatisfied. It will mean walking your path with steady focus, no matter how loudly others boast of theirs. It will mean trusting that your life, in its unique rhythm, carries its own form of success. When you release comparison, you notice something remarkable. The peace you sought was always there, hidden beneath the noise. You realize that your worth was never in question, that your path never needed to look like anyone else's. The weight of envy lifts, the fog of inadequacy clears, and what remains is clarity. You walk lighter, steadier, rooted in your own ground. And in this state, you no longer fear others' success, you celebrate it. You no longer feel threatened by difference, you honor it. You no longer measure yourself against the world, you measure yourself against your own truth. This is the freedom of focusing on your own path. This is how you stop comparing and start living fully, deeply, and authentically in 2025. When you free yourself from comparison, when you stop wasting energy measuring your worth against others, something powerful begins to rise to the surface. You notice the quiet engine behind every action, every word, every decision, the constant stream of thoughts shaping how you experience life. Most people underestimate this force. They treat thoughts as harmless clouds floating across the mind. But Buddhism teaches something far deeper. Thoughts are seeds, and every seed grows into karma. The quality of your thinking becomes the quality of your life. Thoughts do not disappear after they arise. They leave impressions, shaping mood, shaping behavior, shaping choices. A thought repeated often enough becomes a belief. A belief repeated long enough becomes a habit. And habits, over time, create the destiny of a person. If you constantly think of yourself as unworthy, you carry yourself with hesitation, you miss opportunities, you attract relationships that reinforce that belief. If you cultivate thoughts of strength and clarity, you act with confidence. You take steps forward. You create conditions for peace. Karma is not punishment from the outside. It is the natural unfolding of thought into action and action into consequence. Awareness of thought is therefore the foundation of freedom. Without awareness, the mind runs on autopilot, recycling the same patterns again and again. These patterns may not even be yours, they may be inherited from parents, culture, or past pain. But once you see them, you realize you have a choice. You do not need to keep watering seeds of anger, fear, or resentment. You can choose to water seeds of kindness, patience, and clarity instead. This choice, repeated daily, transforms the entire direction of your life. Buddhism often describes the mind as a garden. Every thought is a seed. Some seeds grow weeds of suffering, others bloom into flowers of peace. You cannot stop seeds from appearing, but you can choose which to nurture. If anger arises, you need not act on it. If jealousy stirs, you need not feed it. If compassion flickers, you can fan it into flame. This responsibility is profound because it means your outer life is not separate from your inner life. They mirror one another. A chaotic mind creates a chaotic world. A calm mind creates a calm life. The connection between thought and karma also explains why negative thinking feels heavy. A mind filled with judgment or resentment drains energy. It colors perception so that even neutral events appear threatening. For example, if your thoughts dwell constantly on betrayal, you interpret kindness with suspicion. This lens then shapes your behavior, making you distant, which in turn may push people away, confirming your suspicion. The cycle continues, not because the world is against you, but because your thoughts created the conditions for that reality. To break such cycles, you must change the root, the thoughts themselves. This does not mean suppressing or denying negativity. Thoughts will arise, good and bad. The practice is to meet them with awareness. Instead of fusing with a negative thought, step back and observe it. Say to yourself, "This is anger. This is fear. This is craving." By naming it, you create distance. You recognize that the thought is not your identity, but a passing cloud. This space gives you power, the power to choose whether to feed it or let it dissolve. Another aspect of thought and karma is intention. Two people may perform the same action, yet their karma is different because the thought behind it differs. For example, giving money with genuine compassion creates harmony, while giving the same amount for recognition creates attachment. The action is identical, but the thought shapes the result. This is why mindfulness emphasizes not just what you do, but the quality of awareness with which you do it. Every intention plants a seed, and that seed will bear fruit. In 2025, this teaching is more vital than ever. The world is saturated with distractions pulling your thoughts in every direction. News cycles provoke fear, advertisements spark craving, social media fuels envy. If you do not guard your mind, it becomes a garden others plant for you. Suddenly you are living in fields of anxiety and dissatisfaction that were never yours to begin with. Protecting your thoughts is therefore protecting your life. To focus on yourself means to take ownership of what you allow to grow in your mind. Practical practice begins with meditation, but not only on the cushion. Throughout the day, pause and notice the tone of your thoughts. Are they kind or critical, expansive or narrow, hopeful or despairing? Each tone points to the karma being created. This awareness is like a compass, showing you when you are drifting towards suffering and when you are moving toward peace. With practice, you can redirect thoughts before they solidify into words and actions. Thoughts also influence the body. Science now confirms what Buddhism taught centuries ago. Patterns of thought affect stress levels, immune function, even cellular health. A constant stream of anxious thoughts keeps the nervous system in fight or flight mode, leading to exhaustion and illness. Positive and balanced thinking, on the other hand, activates rest and recovery, promoting health. Karma is not just spiritual, it is physiological. Your body feels what your mind repeats. By changing thought, you change health. Another layer is how thoughts shape relationships. The way you think about others determines how you treat them, which determines how they respond. If you assume someone dislikes you, you act defensively, creating distance. If you think kindly, you act openly, creating connection. Over time, these small shifts accumulate into entire patterns of relationship. In this way, your thoughts build not only your own karma, but the shared karma of communities and families. It is also important to recognize the power of collective thought. When groups of people share the same fears or desires, they create shared karma. Wars, economies, cultures, all are shaped by collective thought patterns. To focus on your own thoughts is therefore not selfish, but transformative. By healing your mind, you contribute to healing the larger field of thought around you. Peaceful thoughts ripple outward, just as violent ones do. To deepen practice, cultivate deliberate thoughts through reflection and gratitude. Each morning, set an intention. Today I will meet challenges with patience. Today I will practice kindness. Today I will value stillness. These intentions are seeds planted consciously, directing the mind toward peace. At night, reflect on how thoughts shaped your actions, not with judgment but with curiosity. Over time, this builds awareness that is steady and strong. The Buddha taught that karma is not fate, it is not fixed. Karma is simply cause and effect. If you have sown seeds of suffering in the past, you need not be bound forever. By planting new thoughts today, you create new conditions tomorrow. This is freedom, the recognition that your life is not written in stone but in soil, and soil can always be replanted. In 2025, this truth is your shield against hopelessness. When challenges feel overwhelming, when the world feels unstable, remember that the one realm you always control is the realm of thought. No one can plant seeds in your mind without your permission. The more you guard this space, the more you shape a life that reflects peace instead of chaos. Eventually, you realize that thoughts are not small or invisible, they are the architects of your reality. Every belief, every choice, every path you take begins as a thought. To treat thoughts carelessly is to surrender your life to chance. To treat them with mindfulness is to reclaim authorship of your destiny. Karma is not punishment or reward from outside, it is simply the echo of what you think, returning in the form of your lived experience. When you take responsibility for your thoughts, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance. You see clearly, my mind is the root, my life is the fruit. If I want peace, I must think peace. If I want clarity, I must think clarity. If I want freedom, I must think freedom. This is the heart of the lesson. Your thoughts create karma, and karma shapes not only who you are, but who you will become. In this awareness, every moment becomes sacred. Each thought is an opportunity, each breath a chance to plant wisely, and as you continue forward, you carry this truth with humility and with strength. Focus on the quality of your thoughts, and you will transform the quality of your life. When you begin to see how your thoughts shape your reality, when you take responsibility for the seeds you plant in your mind, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Much of your suffering comes not only from what you think, but from what you cling to. The world teaches you to hold tightly to possessions, to achievements, to titles, to labels. Each object, each identity, feels like proof that you matter. Yet the more you accumulate, the heavier you become. The weight is not only physical but emotional, a constant burden to protect, maintain, and prove. The next step on this journey is discovering the freedom that comes when you let go, when you own less and live more. Possessions promise security, but often they create fear. The more you own, the more you worry about loss. A simple shirt carries no pressure, but an expensive wardrobe can stir anxiety about stains, theft, or fashion trends. A home offers shelter, but when it becomes tied to status, it chains you with mortgages, upkeep, and comparison. In this way, what was meant to support life begins to consume it. Letting go is not about rejecting all comfort, but about reclaiming your freedom from these hidden chains. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering. This does not mean you cannot enjoy things. It means you must not confuse them with your identity. Owning less is not poverty, it is clarity. It allows you to see the difference between tools that support life and illusions that trap it. When you release what you do not need, space opens up, not only in your room but in your heart. That space is where peace lives. Owning less also applies to labels. The roles you cling to, successful, attractive, intelligent, popular, can become prisons just as heavy as physical possessions. When your worth depends on maintaining these identities, you are forced into constant performance. The fear of slipping, of being seen as less, steals your authenticity. By loosening your grip on labels, you discover that you are not a single identity but a living being, always changing, always deeper than words can describe. Letting go of excess requires honesty. How many of the things you hold are truly useful? How many bring genuine joy? And how many sit gathering dust, kept only out of fear of being without? Minimalism in this sense is not an aesthetic but a practice of truth. It is looking at every object, every label, every expectation, and asking, does this serve me, or do I serve it? Each honest answer lightens your load. The process can begin simply. Release one object, one piece of clothing, one possession that no longer aligns with who you are. Notice the relief that follows. Expand this to commitments, roles, even self-descriptions that feel heavy. Each release strengthens the muscle of letting go, teaching you that your value does not shrink when your possessions do. In fact, it grows because your attention returns to what truly matters. Owning less also restores presence. When you are not buried under clutter, you see more clearly. A simple room invites calm. A quiet wardrobe frees mornings from indecision. A clear schedule makes space for rest and reflection. Complexity often disguises itself as abundance, but simplicity reveals itself as freedom. With fewer distractions, your focus sharpens, your relationships deepen, your creativity flourishes. There is also joy in discovering how little is truly required for contentment. A meal shared in peace, a walk under the sky, a conversation with a friend, these need no labels or possessions to be rich. When you let go of excess, you are no longer numbed by constant consumption. Small moments regain their flavor, and life itself feels more vivid. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means aligning responsibility with meaning. You may still own a home, a car, or tools, but you hold them lightly, knowing they do not define you. If they are lost, you grieve, but you do not collapse, because your identity was never built on them. This lightness is the essence of freedom. In 2025, the pressure to consume will only grow. Advertisements will whisper that you need more, that you are incomplete without the latest product, that happiness can be bought. Labels will be marketed as proof of belonging: what you wear, what you drive, what you display online. To resist this pressure is radical. It is choosing to step outside the cycle of craving and into a life where your worth is measured not by what you own, but by how you live. Owning less also reveals the richness of generosity. When you are no longer chained to excess, you can share freely. Giving becomes easier because you no longer fear lack. This generosity is not only material, it extends to time, attention, and presence. By letting go of possessions and labels, you discover that the true wealth you carry is your ability to give love, kindness, and care. Another benefit is resilience. When your happiness depends on external possessions, life feels fragile because everything external can be taken. But when your joy is rooted in simplicity, you are less shaken by change. If wealth comes, you enjoy it without attachment. If it goes, you remain steady. The storms of life cannot uproot a person whose roots are not entangled in excess. Owning less is also owning your time. Every object requires maintenance. Every label requires effort. Every possession steals minutes of life. By letting go, you free hours to focus on what nourishes your soul. Instead of spending weekends managing clutter, you spend them deepening relationships. Instead of chasing status, you pursue learning, rest, or creativity. In this way, simplicity restores not just space, but time itself. To practice living more while owning less, cultivate appreciation for experiences over things. Memories cannot be lost or stolen. They require no storage and grow richer over time. The laughter of a shared meal, the peace of watching a sunrise, the satisfaction of completing something meaningful, these are treasures beyond possessions. When you focus on these, your life becomes abundant even with little. This lesson also applies inwardly. Labels like failure, success, victim, or hero are as heavy as objects. To live more, you must release them. You are not confined to one role, and you do not need to cling to any fixed identity. Each day offers renewal, the chance to step into life freshly, unburdened by yesterday's definitions. This is the inner minimalism that matches outer simplicity. A mind free from labels is as clear as a room free from clutter. Buddhism calls this emptiness, not in the sense of lack, but in the sense of openness. When you release the need to define yourself by possessions or labels, you become spacious, receptive, free. Into that space flows peace, creativity, and connection. The emptiness is not void, it is possibility. It is the ground where living fully becomes possible. As you practice this in 2025, you may notice resistance. Fear may whisper that without possessions you are vulnerable, without labels you are invisible. But when you face that fear, you find the opposite is true. You are lighter, freer, more authentic. You are no longer distracted by proving, no longer weighed down by protecting. You are present, fully alive, living more with less. Over time, owning less shifts from an effort to a way of being. Your choices become intentional, your life uncluttered, your heart unburdened. You discover that freedom was never about gaining more, but about needing less. And in this discovery, you step into a kind of wealth that cannot be measured or lost. The wealth of living deeply, fully, and freely. When you release the grip of possessions and labels, when you discover that freedom comes from needing less, you inevitably come face to face with another kind of emptiness, the quiet of being alone. For many, this quiet feels unbearable. Loneliness creeps in like a shadow, whispering that solitude is proof of failure, that being without constant company means you are unwanted. But solitude, when understood, is not weakness. It is one of the greatest strengths a person can carry. The shift from lonely to peaceful alone is not about finding people to fill the silence, but about transforming the silence itself into a sanctuary. Loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is a hunger, a craving for connection that feels unmet. Solitude is fullness, a state where your own presence is enough. The difference lies not in whether you are physically alone, but in how you experience that aloneness. One is emptiness that hurts. The other is space that heals. This shift does not happen overnight. It begins when you stop resisting solitude and start exploring it, like a hidden landscape within yourself that you have been too busy to enter. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment. Attachment not only to things, but also to the constant presence of others. When you depend on others to confirm your worth, you are never truly free. Every absence feels like a wound, every silence like rejection. But when you learn to rest comfortably in your own company, you no longer grasp desperately at others to fill you. Connection then becomes a choice, not a need, and relationships become lighter, freer, more genuine. Solitude offers a mirror. In the quiet, the distractions fade, and what remains is you, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your truths. At first, this mirror can be difficult. Old wounds rise, unhealed pain surfaces, doubts echo louder without outside noise to drown them. But these are not punishments, they are invitations. Solitude allows you to see clearly what you have been carrying, to face what you have been avoiding, to heal where you have been numb. It is in solitude that the deepest self-awareness is born. Peaceful solitude also strengthens resilience. A person who fears being alone is fragile, always dependent on external presence. A person who has made peace with solitude is unshakable. They can walk through absence, rejection, or change without collapsing because they carry stability within themselves. This is not detachment from others, but balance. When you can stand fully alone, you can also stand fully with others, without clinging, without fear. In solitude, creativity awakens. Great thinkers, artists, and sages throughout history sought solitude not because they were antisocial, but because silence and space allow the mind to expand. Without constant input, new ideas surface, connections form, insights bloom. The Buddha himself spent long periods alone, meditating under trees, walking quietly, allowing wisdom to ripen. In the same way, your own solitude becomes a fertile ground for growth when you stop running from it. The fear of solitude often arises because people confuse presence with noise. They believe they must always be talking, sharing, doing to feel connected. Yet solitude teaches the opposite. Presence is not about noise, but about awareness. When you are fully present with yourself, you discover that silence is not empty, it is alive. The sound of your breath, the stillness of your body, the rhythm of your thoughts, these become companions, not enemies. Learning to enjoy being alone also transforms how you approach relationships. When you no longer fear solitude, you stop entering relationships out of desperation. You choose them because you want to, not because you need to. This creates healthier connections, free from clinging or control. Others sense this difference. They feel the strength in your independence, the peace in your presence. And relationships deepen because they are built on freedom rather than fear. Practical steps toward this peace include creating rituals of solitude, walk alone without distraction, sit quietly without reaching for your phone, eat a meal in silence, journal your thoughts without filter. These small acts train the mind to settle into aloneness with comfort rather than panic. Over time, solitude shifts from something you endure to something you treasure. Solitude also teaches balance between inner and outer life. Constant external focus drains energy, scattering attention in every direction. Solitude gathers it back, centering you in yourself. This inner centering makes your outer actions more intentional, your relationships more authentic, your work more focused. Instead of being pulled by every demand, you act from clarity because you know your own ground. Another gift of solitude is the discovery that your own presence is enough. Too often, people believe they must always be entertaining, achieving, or performing to justify their existence. But in solitude, stripped of roles and applause, you find the truth. Your being itself is valuable. Simply breathing, simply existing, carries worth. This realization dissolves the hunger for constant validation, replacing it with quiet confidence. In 2025, where connection is constant yet shallow, solitude is a radical act. Devices keep you always reachable, always surrounded by noise. Choosing solitude means reclaiming depth in a world obsessed with surface. It means valuing your own company in a culture that fears silence. It means discovering that the antidote to loneliness is not more people, but more presence with yourself. Solitude also connects you more deeply to nature. Without distraction, the world around you speaks louder, the rustle of leaves, the rhythm of water, the warmth of sunlight. You begin to feel less like a separate individual and more like part of a living whole. This dissolves the sharp edge of loneliness, reminding you that you are never truly alone. The universe itself is your companion, and solitude becomes a way of feeling that connection more vividly. Over time, solitude shifts from being something you practice to something you embody. You carry it within, even in crowds. This inner solitude is not isolation but calm independence. It allows you to remain steady, no matter the noise around you, to stay rooted in your own peace while engaging with the world. To move from lonely to peaceful alone is to reclaim one of life's greatest strengths. It is to stand in silence without fear, to walk without company and still feel whole, to discover that your worth does not depend on constant validation. From this strength, every part of life improves: relationships, creativity, resilience, peace. The transformation begins not by running from loneliness but by facing it, by letting solitude teach you. In that teaching, you discover that being alone is not emptiness but fullness, not weakness but strength. And once you carry this truth, solitude will never again feel like punishment. It will feel like power, the quiet foundation of a life lived deeply and freely. When solitude stops feeling like emptiness and begins to reveal itself as strength, you notice something subtle yet powerful. The peace you feel when you are alone is not built from one grand breakthrough or a single moment of awakening. It is built from the countless small decisions you make each day. These choices may look ordinary, almost invisible, yet they quietly shape the entire direction of your life. Every word you speak, every action you take, every thought you allow or release is a seed. Over time, these seeds grow into the garden of your future. The truth is, life does not change in leaps, it changes in steps, and the steps you take each day decide where the path leads. The mind often seeks dramatic transformation. It wants big victories, bold resolutions, sudden shifts that prove growth has occurred. But Buddhism teaches that greatness is born in the ordinary. A single decision repeated with consistency carries more weight than a burst of effort quickly abandoned. Choosing mindfulness each morning, kindness in conversation, restraint when anger rises, these seem small, but they accumulate into unshakable strength. Just as a mountain is made of tiny stones, a meaningful life is made of daily choices. The challenge is that small choices are easy to dismiss. Skipping a meditation, ignoring a moment of gratitude, choosing distraction over presence, none of these seem catastrophic on their own. Yet over time, their weight becomes clear. Habits are simply choices repeated, and habits become character. What feels insignificant in the moment becomes the foundation of who you are becoming. To see this clearly is to take responsibility for every choice, no matter how small. Consider how thoughts themselves are choices. When anger arises, you choose whether to feed it or release it. When envy appears, you choose whether to indulge it or let it pass. Each choice shapes your inner landscape. Over time, choosing peace strengthens peace. Choosing resentment strengthens resentment. The same applies to actions. When you decide to speak gently instead of harshly, to pause instead of react, you are not just shaping that moment, you are shaping yourself. In 2025, the world will continue to demand shortcuts. Quick fixes, instant results, overnight success. But the deeper truth is that slow, steady choices hold the real power. A single healthy meal does not change your body, but a year of choosing nourishment does. One act of patience does not transform a relationship, but months of consistent patience do. The power of small choices lies in their ability to compound silently and steadily until transformation becomes undeniable. Awareness is the first step in reclaiming this power. Many choices are made unconsciously, guided by habit or impulse. To wake up is to pause before acting, to recognize the space between stimulus and response. In that space lies freedom. Buddhism calls this mindfulness, the practice of being fully present so that choices are deliberate, not automatic. With mindfulness, even the smallest action gains meaning. Drinking a cup of tea, walking across a room, breathing deeply, all become conscious decisions that shape peace. This lesson also reshapes your relationship with discipline. Discipline does not need to be harsh or punishing. It can be gentle but consistent. Waking up 5 minutes earlier to sit in silence, putting the phone aside during a meal, expressing gratitude before sleep, these are not heavy demands. They are simple acts, repeated, that slowly rewire the mind and body toward balance. The consistency matters more than intensity. It is also important to recognize that small choices extend beyond personal growth into relationships and community. The way you greet someone, the way you listen, The patience you show these daily choices ripple outward. You may never know the full impact of a kind word spoken at the right moment, or the restraint shown when anger tempted you. Yet each choice contributes to the collective karma of your family, your workplace, your community. Peace spreads through these tiny acts far more than through grand gestures. Another truth is that small negative choices also compound. A single careless word, a repeated delay, a habit of avoidance, these two accumulate, quietly shaping suffering. Recognizing this is not about guilt, but about responsibility. Once you see the power of small actions, you realize you are never powerless. Every moment offers a chance to redirect, to plant a better seed, to shift the trajectory of your life. Gratitude again plays a role here. By appreciating small steps, you prevent discouragement. The ego often dismisses small progress because it craves dramatic change. But gratitude reminds you that even the smallest act of awareness, the tiniest step toward peace, matters. Over time, these steps carry you further than any single leap. Buddhism often speaks of the middle path, and daily choices are where this path is walked. Extremes burn out quickly, but steady, balanced effort sustains growth. Each day, you ask yourself, what is one small choice that aligns with my peace, my values, my truth? And each time you answer, you strengthen the path beneath your feet. Another layer of this teaching is patience. Small choices rarely bring immediate results, and impatience is the enemy of consistency. To embrace the power of daily decisions is to trust the process, to know that transformation is unfolding even when it is not visible. The farmer does not dig up the seed each day to check its progress. He waters, waits, and trusts. In the same way, you must trust the seeds you plant with each small act. In solitude, you learn to notice these choices more clearly. Without constant distraction, you see the moments where habit takes over, the places where you can shift. Solitude gives space to reflect, to realign, to choose again. This is why solitude and daily choices are deeply connected. One provides the clarity, the other provides the action. Together, they create transformation. In 2025, focusing on small choices is also a form of resistance. The world glorifies spectacle, but real change happens quietly. While others chase dramatic breakthroughs, you commit to steady practice. This commitment builds resilience because it is not shaken by failure. If one choice goes astray, another is always available in the next moment. You are never stuck, never broken, always one choice away from returning to the path. The deeper wisdom is that these choices not only shape your life, but reveal who you truly are. When no one is watching, the choices you make define your character. When life is ordinary, the choices you make determine whether it feels heavy or light. When challenges arise, the choices you have practiced daily decide whether you respond with fear or strength. In this way, the small is never small, it is the foundation of everything. Eventually, living this way turns choice itself into awareness. You no longer need to force or remind yourself. The small acts become natural, the habits become character, the character becomes destiny. What once felt like effort becomes flow, and the life you wanted to create reveals itself as the life you are already living. This is the gift of daily choices. They require no wealth, no special talent, no perfect circumstances. They are available to everyone, every day, in every moment. To see their power is to see that transformation is always possible, always within reach. And so the teaching is simple but profound. Do not underestimate the ordinary. Every step is a seed, every breath an opportunity. Small daily choices shape your life. And when you make them with awareness, kindness, and consistency, they shape a life filled with peace, freedom, and authenticity. When you begin to notice the quiet weight of your daily choices, When you see how even the smallest decision shapes the texture of your days, you come to an even deeper realization. Beneath those choices lies something older, something that has been whispering in your mind for years. It is the set of stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and how the world sees you. These stories are not truths, they are ego's creations. They are lies dressed as certainty, repeated so often that you mistake them for your identity. To truly focus on yourself in 2025, you must begin the work of unlearning these ego stories and letting go of the false narratives that keep you trapped. The ego thrives on stories because it cannot survive in silence. It convinces you that you are only worthy if you succeed, that you are only lovable if others approve, that you are only safe if you stay in control. These are not facts but illusions. Yet the more you repeat them, the deeper they dig into your mind, shaping your choices, your relationships, even your sense of possibility. Unlearning these stories is like opening locked doors within yourself. Behind them waits freedom, authenticity, and peace. The first step in unlearning is recognition. Ego stories often hide in the background, woven into your inner dialogue so tightly that you barely notice them. They appear in thoughts like, "I am not enough. I must prove myself. If I fail, I am worthless." These lines feel natural because they have been rehearsed for years. But once you name them as stories, not truths, you weaken their grip. Awareness is the beginning of liberation. Ego stories are sticky because they offer a false sense of control. Believing "I am only valuable if I succeed" gives you a clear task. Succeed at all costs. But this clarity comes with chains. You become addicted to achievement, terrified of failure, unable to rest. Similarly, believing "I must always please others" makes you feel safe in approval, but leaves you exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from your own needs. The comfort of these stories is illusion. The cost is your freedom. Buddhism teaches that the self we cling to is not fixed. The ego tries to convince you that you are a solid identity, defined by your roles, your history, your mistakes, your titles. But in truth, you are fluid, changing from moment to moment. Just as a river is never the same from one instant to the next, you too are always in motion. Ego stories deny this truth by freezing you in time, holding you captive in a version of yourself that no longer exists. Unlearning requires compassion. You cannot fight ego stories with force because resistance often strengthens them. Telling yourself, "I should not think I am unworthy," only repeats the story of unworthiness. Instead, treat these stories as you would treat a frightened child, with patience, with understanding, with gentleness. When a story arises, meet it with curiosity. Where did this begin? Whose voice planted this belief? Is it truly mine, or did I inherit it from culture, family, or past pain? In this questioning, the story begins to dissolve. Letting go of ego stories also means embracing impermanence. Your worth does not rise and fall with each success or failure, because worth is not dependent on conditions. You are not defined by what happened yesterday, nor by what may happen tomorrow. You are not the sum of labels, possessions, or achievements. When you truly feel this, the ego's grip weakens. The story loses its power because you no longer need it to feel whole. Another aspect of ego stories is their constant comparison. Ego thrives by measuring better than, worse than, ahead of, behind. These comparisons keep you restless, never satisfied, always chasing. But when you release the story of comparison, you return to presence. You see that your path is yours alone, that no other person's journey can diminish or define your own. Without comparison, peace is possible, because you are no longer running a race that does not exist. Unlearning also demands honesty about how much these stories have shaped your life. The jobs you pursued, the relationships you tolerated, The risks you avoided, many were driven not by your true self but by ego's lies. This recognition can be painful, but it is also liberating. It means you are not trapped by fate. You simply followed a script that was never yours, and scripts can be rewritten. In practice, meditation is one of the most powerful tools for unlearning. In stillness, the stories arise clearly. You see them play out in your thoughts, and instead of clinging, you watch them pass. Over time, this observation creates distance. The story, "I am not enough," may still arise, but you no longer believe it as truth. It becomes like a line from a play you have seen too many times, familiar, but no longer convincing. Another practice is reframing. When an ego story arises, replace it with a truth that aligns with your deeper self. Instead of "I must always succeed," you remind yourself, "I am growing, and growth includes failure." Instead of "I must please everyone," you affirm, "I honor myself, and from that place, I connect authentically with others." These reframes are not slogans, but conscious acts of rewriting, planting new seeds where old lies once grew. In 2025, unlearning ego stories is more urgent than ever. The world feeds the ego constantly, encouraging identities built on consumption, performance, and comparison. Advertisements whisper that you are incomplete without the right product. Social media insists you must curate a perfect image. Work cultures reward exhaustion as proof of worth. To step back from these narratives is not only personal healing, it is rebellion. It is choosing authenticity over illusion, presence over performance, truth over story. Letting go of ego stories also reshapes relationships. When you no longer cling to the story that you must be admired, you stop performing and start connecting. When you release the story that you must control, you allow others to be themselves. Relationships become lighter, more real, built on presence instead of masks. You stop needing others to confirm your worth because you no longer doubt it. This shift creates freedom not only for you but for everyone around you. The process is ongoing. Ego stories do not vanish forever. They reappear, testing your awareness. But each time you meet them with clarity, their hold weakens. Each time you choose presence over illusion, you strengthen your true self. Over time, the stories grow quieter, and what remains is a sense of spaciousness, a freedom to simply be without constantly justifying your existence. Ultimately, unlearning ego stories is about returning to your essence. You are not the lies your mind tells you. You are not the roles you perform, the identities you cling to, or the comparisons you make. You are awareness itself, the quiet space in which thoughts, emotions, and stories arise and dissolve. When you rest in this awareness, ego's voice loses its authority. The lies no longer bind you, and life feels lighter, freer, more authentic. To focus on yourself in 2025 means to see through the illusions that have shaped you, to drop the stories that no longer serve, to live from the truth beneath them. This is not a rejection of self, but a discovery of self, the self that exists beyond ego, beyond lies, beyond fear, and in that discovery, you find a peace that no story can give, and no story can take away. When the lies of ego begin to loosen their hold and you no longer mistake those old stories for your identity, another truth slowly reveals itself. Freedom from illusions is only the beginning. What truly shapes your life are the patterns you repeat every single day. Even without ego's heavy voice, habits can quietly bind you, pulling you back into the same cycles again and again. These cycles may look ordinary: how you wake, how you eat, how you speak, how you react, but over time they become invisible cages. Breaking them requires a new way of seeing each day, each habit, as a kind of rebirth, a chance to choose differently and step out of the loops that no longer serve you. Cycles can feel eternal when you are trapped inside them. Waking with the same heaviness, repeating the same arguments, falling into the same distractions. The mind convinces you that this is simply who you are, that change is out of reach. Yet Buddhism teaches that nothing is fixed. Every moment is impermanence in motion, every breath an opportunity to begin again. The cycle only continues if you feed it. The moment you stop feeding it, the chain weakens. The key is awareness, because most cycles thrive in unconsciousness. You overeat not because you choose it consciously, but because the pattern takes over. You lose your temper not because you desire conflict, but because anger has become automatic. These loops run beneath the surface until you bring them into light. Awareness interrupts the automatic, giving you the space to act differently. That space is where rebirth happens. Breaking bad cycles begins with honest observation. Notice the triggers that lead you back into old habits. Perhaps boredom pushes you to scroll endlessly, stress drives you to eat without thought, or insecurity makes you repeat the same unhealthy relationships. Without judgment, map these patterns clearly. Seeing them is not weakness, it is strength, because what is seen can be changed. Every cycle has three parts: cue, response, result. A trigger appears, you act, and a consequence follows. For example, feeling anxious, cue, leads to smoking, response, which brings temporary relief, result. The relief reinforces the cycle, making it harder to break. But once you see this structure, you can intervene. You cannot always remove the cue, but you can change your response. Instead of smoking, you breathe deeply or walk. Over time, the new response reshapes the cycle, leading to healthier results. Buddhism often frames this as karma in motion. Your daily habits are karma, unfolding actions repeated until they shape identity. But karma is not fate, it is flexible. By changing even one link in the chain, you create a new stream of cause and effect. The smallest shift in daily choice can eventually transform the entire direction of your life. Habits are not only about external actions, they also include mental cycles. Worry, for example, becomes a pattern of thought. You face uncertainty, the mind spirals into worst-case scenarios, and anxiety deepens. Or resentment. A memory surfaces, the mind replays it, bitterness grows, and the cycle tightens. These loops are as binding as physical addictions, but the principle is the same. See the pattern, step back, redirect the thought. Meditation is a powerful tool here, because it trains the mind to notice when thought spirals begin and to let them dissolve instead of fueling them. It is important to approach this work with compassion. Cycles often form as survival strategies. A child grows up seeking approval to feel safe, and that habit persists into adulthood as people-pleasing. A person experiences pain and turns to distraction for relief, which becomes addiction. These cycles once protected you, even if imperfectly. Honoring this truth prevents self-hatred. Breaking cycles is not about blaming yourself, but about thanking the old strategies for what they gave, and then releasing them because they no longer serve. Another insight is that cycles are not broken once for all. They are weakened each time you choose differently. Rebirth is not a single dramatic moment, but 1,000 small decisions. The first refusal to repeat an old pattern may feel shaky, but with each repetition, the new habit grows stronger. Just as water shapes stone drop by drop, new patterns carve themselves into your life through consistent practice. Ritual can help replace destructive cycles with nourishing ones. Instead of waking and reaching for your phone, you begin the day with 3 deep breaths. Instead of collapsing into distraction after work, you choose a walk in silence. These rituals anchor you in intention, reminding you that you are not at the mercy of habit but the author of your actions. Accountability also strengthens the process. Sharing your intention with someone you trust creates support. It is not about shame but about encouragement, about reminding yourself that you do not need to walk alone. Community has always been part of Buddhist practice for this reason. The Sangha provides reflection and strength when your own resolve feels thin. Breaking cycles also means forgiving setbacks. Old habits are stubborn. They return when stress rises or awareness slips. But one misstep does not erase progress. Each moment is still a chance to begin again. This is the essence of mini rebirths. You are never trapped by yesterday's failure because today offers a new choice. With this perspective, you stop giving up when perfection fails and instead continue steadily with patience. The power of seeing habits as rebirths is that it transforms life into constant renewal. You no longer wait for big changes to save you. You see that each decision, what you eat, how you speak, whether you pause or react, shapes not just the moment but the person you are becoming. This recognition is empowering because it places freedom in your hands, not in some distant future. Cycles also shape collective life. Families repeat patterns across generations: anger, silence, avoidance, addiction. To break a cycle in yourself is to break it for those who come after. Your children, your community, inherit not only your words but your patterns. Choosing differently today creates ripples of healing beyond your own life. In 2025, this teaching is especially urgent because modern life reinforces cycles of distraction and consumption. Technology, designed to capture attention, trains the mind into endless loops of checking, scrolling, refreshing. These cycles steal time, scatter focus, and deepen restlessness. Breaking them requires deliberate pauses, intentional choices, a reclaiming of attention. Each time you set the phone aside to breathe or connect with the present, you create a small rebirth, a reminder that you own your attention, not the other way around. There is also a spiritual dimension. Each habit broken, each cycle interrupted, is a step toward liberation. The Buddha described samsara as endless cycles of birth and death, fueled by craving and ignorance. On a smaller scale, our daily loops mirror this. Every time you break a cycle of craving, you taste a bit of freedom from samsara itself. Each mini rebirth brings you closer to awakening, not in theory but in practice, in the lived reality of your days. Ultimately, breaking bad cycles is about reclaiming agency. It is the refusal to let old patterns define you, the courage to see every moment as a chance to begin again. It is not glamorous work. No one applauds when you choose patience over anger, presence over distraction, discipline over indulgence. But these quiet victories accumulate, shaping a life of depth and freedom. The shift comes when you stop seeing habits as chains and start seeing them as opportunities. Every pattern is a teacher, showing you where you are asleep and where you can awaken. Every cycle is a chance for renewal. And every day, through awareness and choice, you are offered countless mini rebirths. When you embrace them, your life becomes a continuous unfolding of freedom, a constant chance to step out of the past and into the present, fully alive, fully awake. When you begin breaking the cycles that have held you for years, when you start to see each day as a chance to begin again, another truth rises that cannot be ignored. Even as you create new patterns, a shadow lingers: guilt for the past. You remember the mistakes you made, the people you hurt, the times you betrayed yourself, and though you walk differently now, the weight still clings. Old choices may no longer control your actions, but they haunt your heart. This is where the next step begins, learning to forgive yourself first, because without this release, the new life you are building remains chained to the old one. Guilt is often mistaken for morality. You believe that if you keep punishing yourself, you are somehow making up for the harm you caused. Yet guilt does not repair the past, it only poisons the present. Carrying guilt is like drinking from a cup of bitterness every day, hoping it will heal what has already been done. The truth is, guilt has no power to undo mistakes. Only responsibility, action, and compassion can do that. Forgiving yourself is not about denying what happened, but about refusing to be imprisoned by it forever. Buddhism teaches that clinging to the past is suffering. The past is gone, the moment has dissolved, yet the mind holds it as if replaying it will change the outcome. What you did 5 years ago, or even 5 minutes ago, cannot be reversed. But what you do now is within your power. Forgiveness shifts your attention from what cannot change to what can. It allows you to stop bleeding energy into regret and begin pouring it into growth. Self-forgiveness begins with honesty. Denial keeps guilt alive. When you minimize or justify what happened, the truth remains hidden and the wound never closes. To forgive yourself, you must face the reality of what you did or failed to do. This facing is painful, but it is the doorway to release. You say to yourself, "Yes, I made that mistake. Yes, I hurt myself or others. Yes, I strayed from what I value." In this honesty, the story stops being a shadow and becomes something you can hold with clarity. Yet honesty alone is not enough. You must also bring compassion. Without compassion, honesty becomes cruelty, fueling more guilt rather than healing. Compassion means seeing the conditions that led to your actions. Perhaps you acted from ignorance, from fear, from patterns you did not yet understand. Recognizing this does not excuse the harm, but explains it. And in that explanation you find the possibility of growth. You see that you are not your worst moment, but a human being learning through imperfection. Forgiving yourself also means making amends where possible. If harm was done to others, responsibility requires repair. Words of apology, acts of restitution, even silent prayers of goodwill, these steps transform regret into action. But amends must come from sincerity, not from a desperate need for others to release you. Sometimes forgiveness from others will not come, and you cannot control that. What matters is your own effort to act rightly now. The rest must be let go. Another layer of forgiveness is releasing perfectionism. Many people carry guilt, not only for clear mistakes, but for simply being imperfect. They replay every missed opportunity, every moment of weakness, as though being human were itself a crime. But perfection is illusion. To demand it of yourself is to guarantee endless suffering. Forgiveness here means accepting your humanness, allowing yourself to be flawed without labeling those flaws as failures of worth. In 2025, the pressure to present a perfect self will be greater than ever. Social media amplifies guilt, showing endless images of people who seem to have done better, lived cleaner, chosen wiser. Against this backdrop, your mistakes feel louder, your flaws heavier. But forgiveness cuts through the illusion. It reminds you that you are not competing with anyone else's story. Your worth does not depend on appearing flawless, but on continuing to grow with honesty and compassion. Another important aspect is the connection between guilt and identity. Many people do not just carry guilt, they become it. They no longer say, "I made a mistake." They say, "I am a mistake." This fusion is the deepest prison. To forgive yourself, you must separate being from doing. Actions can be harmful, but your essence remains capable of goodness, wisdom, and change. Buddhism calls this Buddha nature, the truth that beneath confusion and error lies a fundamental clarity and compassion within every person. Forgiveness is remembering this truth. Forgiving yourself also transforms relationships. Without it, you project guilt outward, expecting others to condemn you, reading judgment into their words, withdrawing from connection. But when you release guilt, You meet others with openness rather than fear. You no longer need constant reassurance, nor do you sabotage relationships by punishing yourself through them. You enter with honesty, not shame. Forgiveness restores the ability to give and receive love freely. This practice also requires patience. Forgiveness is not always a single event, but a process. Some wounds take time to close. Some mistakes require repeated effort to release. You may forgive yourself one day and feel guilt return the next. This does not mean failure, but practice. Each time you release guilt, even for a moment, you weaken its hold. Over time, release becomes the natural state, and guilt becomes only an echo. One practical way to cultivate self-forgiveness is through reflection. At the end of each day, review your actions. Where you fell short, acknowledge it honestly, then resolve to act differently tomorrow. Then let it go. Do not carry it into the next day like a burden. Each night becomes a closing, each morning a rebirth. This rhythm trains the mind to accept imperfection while continually choosing growth. Meditation on loving kindness is another tool. Directing compassion toward yourself may feel unnatural at first, but it is essential. Repeat silently, "May I be free from guilt. May I be gentle with myself. May I grow from my mistakes." These phrases, repeated with sincerity, soften the inner critic and invite a kinder voice to rise. Forgiving yourself also protects your energy. Guilt drains vitality, leaving you trapped in rumination. When you release it, that energy returns. Suddenly, you have strength to pursue what matters, to nurture relationships, to deepen practice. Forgiveness is not passive, it is liberation of energy from the past into the present. There is also the deeper truth that holding guilt is another form of ego. It centers the self endlessly, my mistake, my failure, my shame. Forgiveness shifts focus outward again, to the ways you can serve, connect, and grow. In this way, letting go of guilt is not selfish, but the opposite. It frees you to contribute more fully to others without being chained by your own regrets. Over time, forgiving yourself becomes a way of life. Each mistake is no longer a lifelong sentence, but a lesson. Each misstep is met with correction, not condemnation. You carry the wisdom forward without carrying the weight. And in this freedom, life feels lighter, clearer, more open. To forgive yourself first is to release the oldest chain you carry. It is to stop punishing yourself for being human. It is to trust that growth is possible, that worth is unshaken, that mistakes are not the end but the beginning of wisdom. Without this forgiveness, every step forward is heavy. With it, each step is free. And in 2025, when the world pushes you toward shame and perfection, the most radical act of self-focus may be the gentlest. To finally let yourself be forgiven. When guilt is finally lifted and you allow yourself the gift of forgiveness, a new kind of space opens within you. The heaviness that once crowded your heart is replaced by quiet clarity. Yet in that clarity, something surprising happens. What feels empty at first begins to overflow with richness. This is the paradox at the core of the next lesson, that in letting go, you are not left with nothing but with everything that truly matters. Empty does not mean lacking, it means free. And in that freedom, life becomes full in ways that possessions, labels, and old stories never could. We are conditioned to believe that fullness comes from adding achievements, adding possessions, adding validation. The mind equates accumulation with abundance. But Buddhism teaches the opposite, that fullness arises from release. When you cling tightly, your hands are too crowded to hold what you truly need. When you let go, you create space for peace, joy, and authenticity to enter. Emptiness is not void, but openness. It is the wide sky no longer blocked by clouds. The sense of inner abundance born from emptiness is different from fleeting pleasure. Pleasure depends on conditions, food, success, approval, always vulnerable to change. But the fullness that comes from letting go does not depend on external factors. It comes from within, steady and unshaken. When you are not clinging, life feels lighter. When you are not consumed by craving, you see beauty in simplicity. This is why monks, with almost nothing, often radiate a depth of joy that billionaires fail to touch. To understand this, you must first notice the cost of holding on. Think of how exhausting it is to cling to control, to replay grudges, to hoard possessions out of fear. Each attachment is weight. Each attachment requires energy to protect, defend, and justify. This is why people with everything often feel burdened, not free. Letting go is not loss, it is relief. And in that relief, energy returns, space opens, life expands. Emptiness also clears perception. When your mind is crowded with attachments, you see only through their lens. Anger colors the world as hostile. Desire paints everything as lacking. Fear reduces life to threats. But when you release these attachments, perception becomes clear. You see people as they are, situations as they are, yourself as you are. This clarity is abundance because it reconnects you with reality rather than illusion. Another layer of fullness is gratitude. Letting go of craving allows you to appreciate what is already present. When you are always reaching for more, the present feels insufficient. But when you stop clinging, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. A sip of water, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter, these are no longer overlooked. They are experienced fully, deeply, richly. Gratitude transforms emptiness into overflowing. Inner abundance also arises from freedom of identity. When you let go of labels success, failure, victim, hero, you discover that you are larger than any definition. You are not boxed into one story. This openness allows you to live more authentically, to adapt, to grow. The fullness here is possibility. Without the weight of rigid identity, you are free to become, to explore, to expand. Letting go also deepens connection. Many fear that detachment means isolation, but the opposite is true. When you no longer cling to people out of need or control, you can love more freely. Relationships no longer suffocate under the weight of expectation. You can offer presence instead of possession, care instead of control. The emptiness of attachment creates the fullness of genuine connection. In daily life, this teaching can be practiced through simplicity, reducing possessions, simplifying schedules, releasing unnecessary commitments. All these create emptiness that feels abundant. A cluttered room often feels suffocating, while a clear space feels calming. The same is true of the heart. Letting go of excess gives room for what matters to breathe. Meditation embodies this paradox. In silence, you release thought after thought, letting the mind empty. At first, it feels barren, even unsettling. But stay with it, and you notice the spaciousness. Within that space comes peace, joy, sometimes even insight that feels vast. This fullness arises not because you added anything, but because you allowed everything else to drop away. In 2025, the challenge will be to resist the constant demand to fill yourself with more content, more possessions, more goals. Culture glorifies busyness and accumulation, convincing you that emptiness is failure. But if you dare to step into emptiness, you discover the opposite. That abundance was never about quantity, but about quality of presence. The person who is free of craving may own little yet live as though they own the world. Letting go also creates resilience. When your happiness depends on holding tightly, loss devastates. But when your happiness is rooted in openness, loss is painful but not shattering. You can grieve and release without collapsing, because your peace was never built on what could be taken. This inner steadiness is abundance beyond measure. It means nothing external has the power to define or destroy you. The practice of emptiness also reveals joy in serving others. When you are not consumed by clinging, you have space to give. Generosity flows naturally, not from obligation but from abundance. You give time, care, presence, resources, and rather than feeling depleted, you feel enriched, because emptiness allows life to flow through you rather than stagnate within you. Another dimension is creativity. The cluttered mind has no room for inspiration. The empty mind, free from constant grasping, becomes fertile ground for ideas and insights. Many artists, thinkers, and sages throughout history have found that their most profound creations emerged not from effort but from spaciousness, from letting go and allowing something greater to flow through. Letting go also restores balance. Clinging creates extremes, overwork, overconsumption, overthinking. Release brings moderation, the middle path the Buddha described. In balance, life feels abundant because it is sustainable. You no longer burn out chasing what cannot satisfy. You walk steadily, and each step feels complete. To live empty but full is to redefine abundance entirely. It is not measured in wealth or possessions, but in clarity, gratitude, freedom, presence, resilience, generosity, creativity, and balance. These cannot be bought or hoarded. They arise only when you loosen your grip, when you stop trying to fill yourself from the outside and allow fullness to rise from within. Over time, emptiness becomes not something you practice occasionally, but a way of being. You carry lightness into everything, conversations, decisions, relationships. You no longer need to control or cling. You walk with openness, trusting that what comes will come, what goes will go, and through it all, you remain steady, abundant, whole. This is the heart of the paradox. Emptiness is not lack, but liberation. By letting go, you discover you were never missing anything. The fullness you sought was always inside you, waiting beneath the weight of what you carried. To live empty but full is to live free, and in that freedom, you find the deepest abundance life can offer. When emptiness begins to show itself as abundance, and you feel the richness that comes from letting go, another shift naturally arises. You realize that much of what drains you is not the weight of possessions or labels anymore, but the way you rush through life. Always moving, always multitasking, always chasing the illusion of progress. Yet busyness does not equal meaning. You can be busy all day and still feel hollow at night. Presence, on the other hand, turns even the smallest act into something complete. This is where the next lesson unfolds. True productivity is not measured by how much you do, but by how fully you are there when you do it. Busyness has become a badge of honor. People wear exhaustion as proof of importance, as if running endlessly is the same as living fully. But what is the result? A life fragmented into pieces, where tasks are checked off yet never truly experienced. Presence changes everything. When you are present, washing a single dish becomes more nourishing than completing 100 tasks absent-mindedly. Presence brings depth, while busyness only skims the surface. The mind often believes productivity comes from doing more in less time, but the truth is, scattered attention weakens everything. Writing with distraction leads to errors. Listening while thinking of your next response leads to misunderstanding. Even eating without awareness robs you of satisfaction. Productivity rooted in presence means you give your full attention to what is in front of you. The work may be slower, but it is richer, more accurate, more lasting. Buddhism teaches mindfulness as the art of being fully in the present, not half in yesterday's regrets, not half in tomorrow's anxieties, but here, in the single moment where life is real. This is not passivity, it is the most effective way to live. When your mind and body are aligned in the now, energy is not wasted on distraction. This concentration allows you to accomplish tasks with clarity and calm. Presence makes productivity natural, not forced. One way to see this is through the breath. Breathing happens constantly, yet most of the time it goes unnoticed. When you stop and feel the breath air entering, air leaving you anchor yourself in presence, suddenly, even if you are not rushing, you feel alive, awake, steady. From this steadiness, you can return to your work or relationships with sharper focus. The breath becomes a simple but powerful reminder. The present is where life and effectiveness meet. Busyness is often driven by fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind, fear of being forgotten. These fears push you into constant activity, as though proving your worth requires constant motion. But presence dissolves fear. When you are fully engaged in the moment, fear loses its grip because the mind is no longer scattered into past and future. Productivity flows not from panic but from peace. Presence also transforms relationships. In a conversation, presence means listening fully, without preparing a reply or checking your phone. The other person feels seen, valued, respected. 1 minute of true listening often means more than an hour of distracted talking. This is real productivity and connection. It deepens bonds, prevents conflict, and creates trust. In work, presence reveals itself in quality. A task done with presence carries fewer mistakes, requires less rework, and often takes less time overall than a task rushed through with distraction. Presence creates flow, where action feels natural and time loses its heaviness. This is why some of the most effective people are not those who work endlessly, but those who are fully there in the hours they do work. Presence also restores balance. Busyness often blinds you to your limits, pushing you to exhaustion. Presence makes you aware of your body's signals, tension in your shoulders, fatigue in your eyes, restlessness in your mind. These signals guide you to rest before burnout, to pause before mistakes, to nourish yourself before depletion. In this way, presence protects both productivity and health. Another truth is that presence makes life meaningful. Productivity measured only by output leaves you empty, because no matter how much you do, it never feels enough. But presence makes every act, however small, complete. Drinking a glass of water with full awareness can feel more satisfying than completing a long list distractedly. Meaning is not in the size of the act, but in the depth of your presence within it. In 2025, the temptation to confuse busyness with productivity will be greater than ever. Technology will encourage constant multitasking, endless notifications, the illusion of efficiency. But the cost of this illusion is fragmentation of attention. Choosing presence is a radical act of reclaiming focus. It is saying, I will not let my attention be scattered. I will give myself fully to this moment. And in doing so, you accomplish not only more, but better. To practice presence, begin by slowing down. When you eat, notice each bite. When you walk, feel your steps. When you work, focus on one task at a time. These are not inefficiencies, they are disciplines that train the mind to remain steady. Over time, presence becomes natural, and multitasking loses its appeal. You discover that deep work, deep rest, and deep connection all come from the same source, being fully where you are. Presence also teaches humility. Busyness often inflates the ego, making you feel important through activity. But presence humbles you, reminding you that life is not measured by how much you do, but by how deeply you live. A present moment is complete in itself, without needing to prove anything. This humility is powerful because it frees you from the endless chase of proving and allows you to focus on what matters. Another benefit of presence is joy. Busyness rarely brings joy. It brings exhaustion, stress, and often resentment. But presence reveals joy in the ordinary. The taste of tea, the sound of birds, the touch of a loved one's hand. These moments are small but abundant when fully experienced. Joy strengthens resilience, making you more effective in the face of challenges. Presence also cultivates wisdom. When you are scattered, you react impulsively, often regretting later. Presence gives space between stimulus and response. In that space, clarity arises. You see the situation more fully. You respond with balance rather than reaction. This wisdom saves time, prevents conflict, and creates harmony, an invisible but profound productivity. Ultimately, presence redefines success. Instead of being proud of how much you did, you begin to value how deeply you lived each moment. Productivity becomes not a race but a rhythm, not exhaustion but effectiveness, not distraction but depth. Presence makes life itself the measure, not a checklist. When you embrace presence, you realize that the goal was never to be endlessly busy but to be fully alive. In that aliveness, every act matters, every connection deepens, every task is infused with meaning. Being present beats being busy because presence is not only productivity, it is life itself, lived without waste, lived with fullness, lived awake. When presence becomes your way of living, and you begin to see how much deeper life feels when you are fully there, a sharper question arises. If every moment matters, then how many moments do you truly have? Time is the one resource you can never reclaim, and yet it is the one most often wasted in distraction or regret. To understand presence fully, you must also face mortality. Thinking about death is not a morbid exercise. It is a source of clarity. It strips away illusions and reminds you what is essential. By remembering that life is finite, you learn to live it more fully, more honestly, and more deeply. Death is the great equalizer. No title, wealth, or reputation can protect against it. Yet most people live as if it will never come, pushing the thought aside, building routines that avoid the truth. But avoidance does not create freedom, it creates fear. The more you deny death, the more it lurks in the shadows, shaping your life unconsciously. The Buddha taught that reflecting on impermanence is a path to liberation. When you remember that all things end, you stop clinging so tightly. You stop wasting energy on what does not matter, and you begin to cherish what is here now. Thinking about death reveals how much of life is spent on trivial concerns. Small irritations, grudges, competitions that feel important in the moment lose their weight when placed beside mortality. If you knew you had 1 year left, would you argue over minor disagreements? Would you obsess over how strangers see you? Or would you choose peace, connection, and meaning? Mortality brings that clarity not to scare but to prioritize, to remind you that your energy is precious and should not be squandered. Facing death also reshapes ambition. Many chase achievements as though they will live forever, accumulating titles and possessions that will vanish the moment their life ends. When you hold death in awareness, ambition changes form. You no longer strive for what impresses others, you strive for what enriches the soul. You seek work that feels meaningful, relationships that are genuine, experiences that leave lasting impact. Mortality does not weaken ambition, it purifies it, making it less about ego and more about truth. Another gift of mortality awareness is urgency. Not the frantic urgency of panic, but the gentle urgency of knowing that every day counts. Without awareness of death, procrastination flourishes. You tell yourself there is time to love more deeply, to heal broken relationships, to follow your calling. With mortality in mind, you realize that time is never guaranteed. The only time you truly have is now. This urgency motivates action, not delay. It pushes you to say what matters, to take steps toward what you value, to live rather than postpone living. Thinking about death also dissolves fear of failure. If life is temporary, then failure is even more temporary. Mistakes that once felt crushing shrink beside the vastness of impermanence. When you realize that none of your stumbles define you forever, you gain courage. You take risks aligned with your values, knowing that regret for what you never tried weighs heavier than any failure you might face. Mortality frees you to be bold, because the worst outcome is not failure, it is reaching the end of life having never truly lived. Mortality also softens the fear of judgment. So much energy is wasted trying to meet expectations, trying to impress, trying to fit in, but when you place these concerns beside the reality of death, they lose significance. The opinions of others fade quickly after you are gone. What remains is not how many liked you, but how sincerely you lived. This truth allows you to live with authenticity, to align actions with your deepest values rather than shallow approval. Facing death also transforms relationships. If you know that time with loved ones is finite, you stop taking them for granted. You listen more deeply, you forgive more easily, you express love more openly. Arguments lose their edge when you remember they may be your last exchange. Mortality is not only about your own life, but about the lives of those around you. Holding this awareness makes you gentler, kinder, more attentive. Another lesson mortality teaches is humility. Death reminds you that you are part of a larger cycle, that life moves beyond individual control. This humility can be grounding. It frees you from the illusion that you must control everything, allowing you instead to participate in life with grace. You accept impermanence not as defeat but as truth, and in that acceptance, peace grows. Meditation on death, called Maranasati in Buddhism, is a practice meant to deepen this awareness. By contemplating that life is fragile, that each breath could be the last, you do not sink into despair, you awaken to presence. This practice helps you drop attachments, quiet fears, and focus on what is meaningful. It is not about obsession with death, but about intimacy with life. In modern life, death is often hidden away, sanitized, avoided, rarely spoken of. This avoidance creates a culture terrified of aging, terrified of endings, desperate to cling to youth and permanence. But those who face death openly often live with more joy, not less. They cherish time, they accept change, they live with fewer regrets. Mortality awareness is not darkness, it is light shining on what matters most. In 2025, when distraction and illusion continue to multiply, remembering death is a radical act of clarity. It cuts through the noise, showing you what deserves your energy. It asks, if your time is limited, what truly matters? What work would you choose? What love would you express? What grudges would you release? These questions are not meant to frighten, but to focus, to pull you back to the essence of living. The paradox is that thinking about death makes life more vibrant. Colors appear brighter, conversations feel richer, experiences hold more depth. When you know time is finite, you stop rushing past the present. You taste food fully. You savor silence. You hold loved ones longer. Mortality makes life precious because it reminds you that each moment is unique, unrepeatable, irreplaceable. This teaching also encourages acceptance at the end of life. Those who have lived with mortality awareness often face death with calm. They do not see it as an enemy, but as part of the cycle they have always known. Their peace inspires others, showing that death need not be feared when life has been lived fully. Ultimately, to think about death is to honor life. It is to refuse to waste your days on distractions, resentments, or illusions. It is to live with urgency but without panic, with depth but without heaviness. Death is not the opposite of life. It is what frames it, what gives it shape, what makes every breath meaningful. When you hold mortality close, you stop asking how much you can achieve and start asking how deeply you can live. And in that shift, you discover that awareness of death is not a shadow but a guide, pointing you toward a life of clarity, presence, and peace. When the truth of mortality settles in your heart and you accept that life is short and every moment is precious, something else becomes clear. If time is limited, then how you approach each moment matters even more. Too often, life is dulled by repetition. The mind drifts into autopilot, assuming it already knows what the day will bring, assuming the ordinary is unworthy of wonder. Yet this way of living blinds you to the richness hidden in plain sight. The next step is to return to the world with fresh eyes, to embrace what Buddhism calls beginner's mind, a state of openness, curiosity, and presence even in the most familiar routines. Beginner's mind is not about ignorance but about humility. It means admitting that no matter how much you have experienced, you have not seen everything there is to see. The sunrise you have watched 1,000 times still carries colors you have not noticed. The person you think you know inside out still holds depths you have not discovered. Each breath itself is new, never repeated. When you approach life with the freshness of a beginner, even the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The opposite of beginner's mind is certainty. Certainty says, "I know this already. I have seen this before. There is nothing new here." Certainty closes the door to discovery. Curiosity opens it. A beginner's mind allows you to step into each moment as if for the first time, not bound by assumptions or dulled by routine. This mindset dissolves boredom and reignites wonder. Routine often numbs awareness. You drive the same road, speak to the same people, repeat the same tasks, and eventually your mind drifts. Life passes in a blur, not because it lacks beauty, but because you have stopped paying attention. Beginner's mind interrupts this sleepwalking. It brings you back to awareness, reminding you that even in repetition, no moment is truly the same. The road has new details. The people you meet have shifted slightly. The tasks carry subtleties you once missed. Curiosity sharpens perception until life feels alive again. This practice also deepens relationships. When you assume you know someone fully, you stop listening. You project past experiences onto them instead of hearing who they are now. Beginner's mind invites you to meet people fresh each time, to listen as though for the first time, to allow them the freedom to change. This creates space for relationships to grow instead of stagnate. Beginner's mind is also essential for learning. Many people block growth by clinging to expertise. They feel that because they know something, there is nothing more to discover. But true mastery requires continual openness. Even the most skilled musician returns to basics. Even the most advanced meditator still practices with humility. In beginner's mind, there is no arrogance, only openness to being taught by life itself. In 2025, where speed and certainty dominate, cultivating beginner's mind is an act of resistance. Society rewards quick answers, instant judgments, and the illusion of expertise. But real wisdom comes from slowing down, questioning assumptions, and approaching life with curiosity. Beginner's mind allows you to adapt in a changing world because you are not trapped in rigid thinking. You are open, flexible, ready to learn anew. This openness also transforms challenges. When difficulty arises, a closed mind resists. This should not be happening. I know how this ends. Beginner's mind, however, stays curious. What is this teaching me? What can I see here that I have never seen before? This shift prevents suffering from becoming despair. It turns hardship into teacher, struggle into opportunity. Beginner's mind also deepens gratitude. When you see the world freshly, you stop taking things for granted. Water is no longer just water, it is life itself. Food is no longer just fuel, it is the earth's gift. A friend's smile is no longer routine, it is a moment of connection, never to be repeated. Gratitude flourishes when you meet life as new, because everything becomes a gift. Practicing beginner's mind does not require radical changes. It can be cultivated in small acts. When walking a familiar path, notice details you have overlooked. When speaking to someone you know well, ask a question with genuine interest. When working on a routine task, approach it as if you had never done it before. These small shifts wake up the mind, reminding it that nothing is ever exactly the same twice. Meditation is a powerful way to train beginner's mind. Each breath is unique, yet the mind often treats them as identical. By paying close attention, you notice subtleties, the texture of air, the rhythm of inhalation, the pause before exhalation. This awareness brings freshness even to something as ordinary as breathing. With practice, the same curiosity extends to daily life until even routine feels alive. Another aspect of beginner's mind is letting go of judgment. Judgment says, "This is boring, this is worthless, this is unimportant." Curiosity suspends judgment, allowing you to experience without filtering. This openness often reveals hidden richness. A task you dismissed as tedious becomes calming. A person you thought uninteresting reveals unexpected depth. By withholding judgment, you discover more. Beginner's mind also fosters creativity. Innovation rarely comes from those convinced they already know everything. It comes from those willing to question, to explore, to see old things in new ways. When you approach problems with curiosity instead of certainty, solutions appear that you would have overlooked. Beginner's mind transforms obstacles into opportunities for creative insight. This mindset is equally important for personal growth. When you label yourself, "I am always this way, I can never change," you close the door to transformation. Beginner's mind frees you from these labels. It allows you to approach yourself freshly, to experiment, to discover new aspects of who you are. You become a student of your own life, learning continuously rather than clinging to old identities. Over time, beginner's mind restores wonder. Life no longer feels stale because every moment becomes an exploration. A cup of tea carries warmth, aroma, taste, all experienced fully, as though new. A conversation carries nuance and connection. Even silence feels rich, alive with possibility. Wonder is not something you must chase. It is what arises naturally when you meet the present without preconceptions. Ultimately, beginner's mind is a form of humility. It reminds you that no matter how much you know, life will always exceed your understanding. This humility is freeing. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need to remain open. From this openness comes wisdom, joy, and presence. Living with beginner's mind means living awake. It means refusing to sleepwalk through routine, refusing to let familiarity dull perception. It means approaching life with curiosity, humility, and wonder. And when you do, you discover that every day, no matter how ordinary, holds infinite possibility. Each moment becomes a doorway to depth, each breath a chance to experience life anew. When you begin to live with beginner's mind and allow yourself to see life freshly, free of labels and assumptions, something else becomes clear. You notice not only how much you carry in your routines and identities, but also how much you carry emotionally from others. Their moods, their judgments, their frustrations, their pain, you absorb them as if they were your own. This weight makes you heavy, scattered, and often disconnected from your own truth. To continue walking lightly, you must learn a new discipline, emotional minimalism. It is the practice of owning only your feelings, not everyone else's, and in doing so, creating the space to live with clarity, peace, and strength. Most people mistake empathy for carrying. They believe that to care deeply is to feel everything another person feels, to take on their burdens as proof of love. Yet this constant absorbing creates exhaustion. You wake with your own challenges but end the day with the weight of many others piled on top. Emotional minimalism does not mean indifference, it means drawing a line between compassion and entanglement. It means saying, "I feel with you, but I do not have to drown with you." The Buddha spoke often about attachment, not just to objects but to emotions. When you cling to feelings your own or someone else's, you prolong suffering. Emotions are natural waves. They rise and pass. But when you hold them, define yourself by them, or claim those that are not yours, you create unnecessary pain. Emotional minimalism is about letting emotions move through without grasping. It is owning your anger, sadness, or joy, but not clinging. And it is refusing to carry the storms that belong to others. This practice begins with awareness. Many of us absorb emotions unconsciously. You enter a room and feel tension, and suddenly your own chest tightens. A loved one is anxious, and without realizing, you become anxious too. To practice emotional minimalism, you pause and ask, "Is this feeling truly mine? Did it arise from within, or did I pick it up from another?" This question creates space. In that space, you decide whether to keep the feeling or to let it pass. Owning only your feelings also means taking responsibility. Too often, people blame others for what they feel. "You made me angry. You ruined my day. You upset me." Emotional minimalism reminds you that no one can put an emotion inside you without your participation. Events and people may trigger reactions, but the feelings are your own. By owning them, you reclaim power. You stop being a victim of others' actions and become the author of your own responses. At the same time, emotional minimalism teaches boundaries. Just as you own your feelings, others must own theirs. You are not responsible for fixing every mood, soothing every frustration, or carrying every burden. This is difficult, especially with people you love. But true compassion does not mean taking over another's emotional responsibility. It means supporting without absorbing. You can sit with someone in pain, listen deeply, offer kindness, but you do not need to internalize their suffering as your own. This clarity strengthens relationships. When you do not absorb another's emotions, you are less reactive. You listen without defensiveness. You support without resentment. Conflicts de-escalate because you are not pulled into their emotional storm. Instead of two people drowning in shared reactivity, there is one person steady enough to help the other return to balance. This steadiness becomes a gift you can offer, but it only comes when you practice emotional minimalism. Another aspect of this practice is simplifying your emotional life. Many people live in constant drama, replaying old wounds, predicting future fears, layering one emotion upon another until the present feels unbearable. Emotional minimalism cuts through this by focusing only on what is true now. You ask yourself, what am I actually feeling in this moment, right here? Often, much of the weight you carry is not current. It is memory or anticipation. By stripping away these extra layers, you discover that the present feeling is lighter, easier to hold, easier to release. Mindfulness meditation is a powerful way to practice. Sitting quietly, you notice emotions arise. Instead of clinging or pushing them away, you label them gently: anger, sadness, joy, calm. You let them be and let them pass. Over time, this practice shows you that emotions are not permanent, not fixed identities. They are visitors. Some belong to you, some you have invited unknowingly from others. Emotional minimalism is the choice to welcome your own visitors and politely decline those that do not belong. In 2025, emotional minimalism will be more necessary than ever. With constant access to global news and social media, you are bombarded with the emotions of millions: fear, outrage, sorrow, excitement. If you absorb it all, you drown. Emotional minimalism allows you to care without being consumed. You acknowledge suffering in the world, you act where you can, but you do not carry the entire weight of humanity on your shoulders. You learn to balance empathy with sanity. This practice also protects your energy. Emotions are powerful forces. Carrying too many that are not yours drains vitality. When you own only what belongs to you, your energy becomes clearer, more focused. You can use it for healing, for creating, for connecting, rather than dissipating it on feelings you never needed to hold. There is also a deeper freedom in this way of living. When you let go of unnecessary emotional baggage, your inner world becomes spacious. You are not constantly tossed by every storm around you. Instead, you remain steady, like a mountain unmoved by passing clouds. This steadiness is not coldness but clarity. It allows you to act wisely, love deeply, and respond with balance. Over time, emotional minimalism becomes second nature. You recognize quickly what is yours and what is not. You stop blaming others for your feelings, and you stop absorbing theirs. You live with emotional clarity, carrying only what belongs to you and letting go of the rest. This clarity makes life lighter, relationships healthier, and the mind calmer. Emotional minimalism is not detachment from humanity, it is alignment with truth. You are not meant to carry the whole world inside you. You are meant to feel your own feelings fully, release them, and meet others from that place of clarity. From there, compassion becomes sustainable, and peace becomes possible. When you begin to practice emotional minimalism and free yourself from carrying the weight of what is not yours, you naturally discover a new strength, clarity. But clarity alone is not enough if you rush into action without care. Many mistakes, regrets, and conflicts arise not because of what you felt, but because of what you did too quickly. The next step is learning to pause, to breathe before you act, to give yourself a space wide enough for wisdom to enter. This pause is not hesitation or weakness. It is the foundation of conscious living. Most people underestimate the power of a single breath. In the heat of anger, in the grip of fear, in the thrill of excitement, one breath seems too small to change anything. But a breath is a doorway. It interrupts the automatic, it slows the surge, it brings awareness back into the moment. Acting without this pause means being driven by impulse, by habit, by old conditioning. Pausing, even briefly, means you step out of the cycle long enough to choose differently. Buddhism teaches that between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space rests freedom. This is where choice lives. Without awareness, you skip the space entirely, reacting before you even realize what has happened. But when you cultivate the discipline of pausing, that space expands. You see the emotion rise, you breathe, and in that moment of stillness, you can decide, will I follow this impulse, or will I act from clarity? The pause protects relationships. Words spoken in heat often cause wounds deeper than intended. Actions made in haste often create damage hard to repair. A pause gives you the chance to notice, is this response aligned with who I want to be? Will these words bring healing or harm? Many conflicts could be softened, even prevented, by the simple act of waiting long enough for the storm of reactivity to pass. Pausing also changes how you relate to yourself. Without it, you may criticize yourself harshly, indulge destructive habits, or reinforce old cycles before realizing what you are doing. With it, you create a moment to ask, does this serve me? Is this what I truly need? This self-awareness interrupts patterns that otherwise repeat endlessly. Each pause becomes an act of self-respect. Another dimension of pausing is patience with life itself. Many rush into decisions out of fear of missing out or desperation to control outcomes. Yet often, clarity comes not from speed but from waiting. Like muddy water that settles when left still, the mind clears when given space. A decision made in calm is stronger than one made in panic. To pause is to trust that wisdom needs time to ripen. Breathing is the simplest anchor for this practice. In any moment, a slow inhale and exhale grounds you in the present. It reminds you that you are not your anger, not your fear, not your craving. You are the one observing them, and from that observation, choice arises. A single breath may seem small, but repeated with awareness, it becomes a discipline that reshapes your entire life. In 2025, where speed is glorified, pausing is radical. Notifications demand instant replies, conversations push for immediate responses, society equates quickness with competence. Yet true wisdom rarely comes from rushing. It comes from depth, and depth requires space. By pausing, you reclaim control over your time and attention. You prove that you are not a slave to urgency, but a master of your own response. The pause also cultivates compassion. When you do not react instantly, you create room to consider the perspective of others. You notice their pain, their struggles, their humanity. Instead of striking back, you may choose understanding. Instead of judgment, you may choose patience. Compassion grows in the silence between stimulus and response. Pausing also enhances productivity. Many mistakes at work arise from haste, sending a message without checking, rushing through a task without focus, agreeing to commitments without thought. Each error costs time and energy to repair. A pause before action prevents these losses. By taking a moment to review, to reflect, to confirm, you act with precision instead of scattering energy. This practice extends even to joy. Rushing through pleasure diminishes it. Eating too quickly, speaking too fast, moving from one distraction to another robs life of richness. Pausing allows you to savor, to taste, to feel fully. In this way, the pause is not only about avoiding harm, but about deepening life itself. Another insight is that pausing does not always mean stillness. Sometimes it means holding back your first instinct long enough for a better response to arise. It may be the difference between escalating conflict and resolving it, between repeating a bad habit and breaking it, between missing an opportunity and recognizing it. Pausing is not delay, it is alignment. Practicing this discipline requires patience at first. The habit of reacting is deeply ingrained, but each time you pause, even for a breath, you strengthen awareness. Over time, the pause becomes natural. Emotions still rise, but they no longer control you. You meet them with steadiness, respond with choice, and act from clarity. The pause also reveals impermanence. Feelings that seem overwhelming in the moment often dissolve quickly when given space. Anger fades, craving weakens, sadness softens. By pausing, you allow this natural impermanence to work for you. Instead of being carried away, you let the wave pass. This recognition prevents small emotions from turning into lasting suffering. Ultimately, pausing before you act is about reclaiming freedom. Without it, you are trapped in reaction, repeating old cycles without choice. With it, you become the author of your life, deciding with clarity rather than compulsion. The pause transforms every interaction, every decision, every habit into an opportunity for wisdom. To breathe before reacting is to live awake. It is to recognize that your power lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling how you meet it. Each pause becomes a moment of liberation, a chance to choose peace over conflict, clarity over chaos, wisdom over impulse. And with each choice, your life reshapes itself into something steadier, freer, and more deeply alive. When you learn to pause before you act and give yourself the breath that separates reaction from wisdom, something deeper begins to shift. You realize that the peace you create within yourself does not stay contained. It ripples outward, touching the people around you in ways you may not even notice. Your calm becomes their calm, your clarity steadies their confusion. Your presence reminds them that another way of living is possible. Healing yourself is never only about you, it becomes a quiet medicine for the world. This is the next step, understanding that when you work on your inner peace, you are also healing others. Suffering is contagious. A person filled with anger often spreads it to those nearby, creating conflict and fear. Anxiety radiates restlessness that unsettles entire households. Even unspoken tension can shift the energy of a room. But the reverse is also true. Peace is contagious. When you enter a space with steadiness, you soften the atmosphere. Others breathe easier in your presence, even without words. Healing yourself creates an environment where others can heal too. Buddhism speaks of interbeing, the truth that no self exists in isolation. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions are not separate from those of others, they are woven into the web of life. When you cultivate inner peace, you influence this web. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you move, all reflect the healing you have done inside. These small reflections create larger ripples, shaping the collective energy of families, communities, even societies. Healing yourself begins with honesty. You face the wounds you carry, old fears, unresolved grief, hidden anger. Left unaddressed, these wounds often spill onto others, even unintentionally. You project pain, repeat cycles, or unconsciously pass burdens to those around you. By healing them within yourself, you prevent this transmission. You stop the chain of suffering. You ensure that the pain ends with you, instead of continuing into others' lives. Inner healing also transforms how you respond to conflict. A wounded person reacts defensively, often escalating tension. A healed person listens with patience, seeks understanding, and responds with balance. This difference changes outcomes. Arguments de-escalate, misunderstandings soften, trust rebuilds. The healing you carry becomes a tool of reconciliation, spreading peace where there might otherwise be division. Another way healing yourself heals others is through modeling. People learn less from instruction than from example. A child watching a parent practice calm under stress absorbs that calm. A friend witnessing your self-respect feels encouraged to respect themselves. A colleague noticing your boundaries may be inspired to set their own. You may never preach or advise, yet your presence becomes a silent teacher. Healing yourself becomes permission for others to heal too. This truth also applies in relationships of care. Many try to support others while neglecting themselves, believing sacrifice equals love. But neglect weakens you. A person who is depleted cannot offer genuine strength. Healing yourself ensures that when you give from abundance rather than emptiness. This kind of giving nourishes both you and the other, creating a cycle of true support rather than quiet resentment. Healing yourself also reduces projection. When your own wounds remain unhealed, you often see them reflected in others. You may criticize in them what you dislike in yourself. You may expect from them what you have not given to yourself. But as you heal, projection fades. You see others more clearly, without the filter of your pain. This clarity itself is healing for them, because it allows you to meet them as they are rather than through distortion. There is also a collective dimension to this truth. Societal suffering is built from countless individual wounds, fear, greed, ignorance. Healing yourself weakens these forces. Each person who chooses compassion over anger, patience over aggression, awareness over distraction, contributes to a shift in the collective. One healed heart may seem small, but multiplied across many, It changes the fabric of society. In 2025, when global anxiety and division are high, this lesson is vital. The world often looks for large solutions, but real change begins in the mind and heart of each person. If you cultivate peace within yourself, you contribute to a calmer, kinder, collective atmosphere. This does not mean ignoring outer action. It means that your action arises from wisdom rather than reactivity. Healing within ensures that what you offer outward is clear, steady, and constructive. Healing yourself also deepens compassion. When you work through your own suffering, you understand more deeply the suffering of others. This understanding makes you kinder, less judgmental, more patient. You know what it feels like to struggle, and so you offer empathy rather than condemnation. This compassion itself heals others, because being seen and understood eases their pain. Another aspect is presence. People rarely need constant advice or solutions. Often, they need presence, someone calm enough to sit with them without judgment. When you heal yourself, you are able to offer this kind of presence. You no longer rush to fix or control. You sit, listen, and simply be. This presence can feel like medicine because it allows others to feel safe enough to process their own healing. Healing yourself also means breaking cycles of harm. Many destructive patterns, anger, avoidance, neglect, are passed through generations. By working on your inner wounds, you stop passing them forward. You create a new legacy. Children raised by someone who has healed do not inherit the same weight. Friends who walk beside you feel lighter because you are not repeating the same cycles. The healing you do for yourself becomes a gift for those who come after. The process of healing yourself is not linear. There will be days when old pain rises, when wounds reopen, when patterns return. But each moment of healing, however small, ripples outward. A single act of patience, a single boundary honored, a single breath taken instead of lashing out, these moments matter. They accumulate into an atmosphere of peace that others feel, often without knowing why. Healing yourself is not selfish. It is the opposite. It is the recognition that your state of being influences every interaction, every relationship, every community you touch. To ignore your own healing is to allow suffering to spread. To embrace it is to create conditions for others to find their own healing. Inner work becomes outer service, not through effort but through presence. Ultimately, healing yourself heals others because we are never separate. Your calm becomes their calm. Your peace becomes their peace. Your freedom gives them permission to seek their own. And so the work you do within yourself is never only for you, it is for everyone your life touches, seen and unseen. To focus on yourself, then, is not withdrawal from the world but contribution to it. By cultivating peace within, you add peace to the world. By healing your own wounds, you weaken the chain of suffering. By freeing yourself, you help free others. And in this way, personal healing becomes universal healing, spreading quietly but powerfully, one heart at a time. When you begin to see how healing yourself naturally ripples into others, you also notice another hidden source of suffering, the attachment to how things should turn out. You may work on yourself, build peace, and offer love, yet still feel restless when results do not match your expectations. You may give your best and still feel disappointed if recognition does not come, or if the world does not respond the way you hoped. This attachment to outcomes is subtle, but it ties your peace to conditions you cannot control. The next step is learning to detach not from effort, but from the results of that effort. Do your best, and then release the rest. Attachment to outcomes often begins with good intentions. You study for success, work for progress, love for connection. But somewhere along the way, the mind confuses effort with entitlement. It whispers that because you tried, the world must reward you. When it does not, frustration grows. Buddhism teaches that clinging is the root of suffering, and outcomes are one of the strongest forms of clinging. The truth is, results are never fully yours. They depend not only on your effort, but also on timing, chance, and countless conditions beyond your control. Detaching from outcomes does not mean abandoning care or discipline. It means giving yourself fully to the present action while letting go of demands on the future. It is planting a seed with love, but not standing over it every moment, demanding it sprout. The seed will grow in its own season, and your role is to nurture it, not control its timing. This shift removes anxiety, because your energy is focused on what you can influence, your effort, your intention, rather than what you cannot. One danger of outcome attachment is that it narrows vision. When you are fixed on one specific result, you overlook other possibilities. You may miss opportunities that arise differently than expected. Detachment opens your sight. You begin to see that even when things do not unfold as planned, they may unfold in ways that serve you better. Many people discover that their greatest growth came not from achieving what they wanted, but from what happened when life redirected them. Another form of attachment comes through identity. You may tie your worth to outcomes. Success means you are valuable. Failure means you are not. This is a heavy burden because outcomes are never guaranteed. Detachment frees you from this trap. Your worth is not measured by results, but by your presence, your integrity, your effort. Success becomes a bonus, not a requirement for self-respect. Detachment also deepens resilience. When you cling to results, setbacks crush you. You feel defeated, hopeless, defined by what did not happen. But when you detach, you see setbacks as part of the path. They do not end your journey. They redirect it. You learn, adjust, and continue. This resilience is not apathy, it is strength. It allows you to move steadily forward without being broken by every twist of circumstance. In relationships, outcome attachment often shows as control. You love someone but secretly demand they act or respond a certain way. When they do not, disappointment poisons the bond. Detachment here means offering love freely, without chains. You care, but you do not control. You give, but you do not demand repayment. This freedom strengthens connection because people feel safe when they are not burdened by expectation. In work, detachment means focusing on process rather than obsessing over recognition. You show up with commitment, not for applause, but because the work itself matters. When recognition comes, you receive it with gratitude. When it does not, you remain steady. This approach makes you more effective, because energy is no longer wasted on worry about how your efforts will be judged. Detachment also prevents burnout. Obsession with outcomes often pushes people into overexertion, sacrificing health and peace in pursuit of a result. But when you detach, you respect your limits. You give what you can with clarity, then release what you cannot control. This balance sustains you long-term, allowing growth without exhaustion. Another benefit of detachment is presence. When you are consumed by outcomes, you live in the future. Every action is a means to an end, never an end in itself. But when you release outcomes, you return to the present. Each step matters for its own sake. A walk is not just exercise for future health, but an experience of breath and movement. Work is not only for future reward, but for the integrity of doing it well now. Presence brings peace, and detachment is the path back to presence. In 2025, detachment will be a crucial discipline. The pace of life will tempt you to measure everything by results, likes, profits, achievements. But this constant measuring steals joy. Detachment returns you to what matters, living with intention, acting with clarity, offering your best without being enslaved by the scoreboard. Practicing detachment can begin with small steps. Before acting, set an intention. I will give my best to this. After acting, release the result with a breath. If success comes, receive it lightly. If it does not, accept it as part of the path. Each time you practice this, you weaken the grip of expectation and strengthen the freedom of presence. Meditation supports this practice. As you sit, thoughts arise, hopes, fears, judgments. You notice them and let them pass without chasing or rejecting. This is detachment in its simplest form, allowing what arises to arise and what passes to pass. In daily life, the same principle applies. Efforts arise, results come and go, but you remain steady, anchored in the present. Detachment also cultivates humility. It reminds you that you are part of a larger web of life, not the sole author of every outcome. Countless unseen conditions shape results, the choices of others, the rhythms of nature, the timing of events. Recognizing this frees you from arrogance and from despair. You do your part, and then you bow to the greater flow of life. Ultimately, detachment is freedom. It is freedom from the chains of anxiety, freedom from the fear of failure, freedom from the endless hunger for control. It is the freedom to act with integrity, to live with presence, to give fully without losing peace to outcomes you cannot control. When you detach from outcomes, you discover a paradox. You often achieve more, not less, because your energy is clear and steady. But even more important, you live with peace, regardless of what happens. You find joy in the process, meaning in the present, and freedom in letting go. And in that freedom, life itself becomes the reward. You've just walked through 10 timeless Buddhist lessons, each one a compass pointing you back to yourself. From letting go of problems that aren't yours, to finding strength in silence, from redefining success as inner peace, to learning the power of saying no, every teaching has been about reclaiming your energy and focusing it where it matters most. We explored the balance of growth without self-criticism, the freedom of stepping away from comparison, the truth that your thoughts shape karma, and the joy of living more by owning less. We saw how solitude becomes strength, how small daily choices carve your destiny, how forgiving yourself frees you, how emptiness leads to abundance, and how presence itself is the ultimate productivity. We faced mortality to live more fully, embraced beginner's mind to stay curious, learned emotional minimalism to carry only what belongs to us, practiced the pause before reacting, discovered that healing ourselves heals others, and finally detached from outcomes to live with clarity and freedom. The thread tying all of these together is simple but profound. In 2025, your greatest act of strength will be focusing inward, not outward. When you anchor yourself in presence, in self-compassion, in awareness, you stop scattering energy on illusions, you stop chasing and start living. And in that focus, your life transforms lighter, clearer, stronger. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these lessons spoke to you the most? Was it the courage of saying no, the freedom of detachment, or the peace of silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one, and your reflections make this journey richer for everyone. And if you found value in these teachings, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss future wisdom. Together, we'll keep uncovering the practices that help us live calmer, stronger, and more awake. 2025 is your year. Make it the year you finally focus fully on yourself.